Welcome to the Sleep Library, a place where timeless stories whisper you to sleep. Get cozy, breathe deeply, and let your mind drift away. Tonight's story begins.
Little Black Sambo by Helen Bannerman. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Once upon a time there was a little black boy, and his name was Little Black Sambo. And his mother was called Black Mumbo, and his father was called Black Jumbo. And Black Mumbo made him a beautiful little red coat and a pair of beautiful little blue trousers. And Black Jumbo went to the bazaar and bought him a beautiful green umbrella and a lovely little pair of purple shoes with crimson soles and crimson linings. And then wasn't Little Black Sambo grand? So he put on all his fine clothes and went out for a walk in the jungle. And by he met a tiger, and the tiger said to him, "Little Black Sambo, I'm going to eat you up." And Little Black Sambo said, "Oh, please, Mr. Tiger, don't eat me up, and I'll give you my beautiful little red coat." So the tiger said, "Very well, I won't eat you this time, but you must give me your beautiful little red coat." So the tiger got poor Little Black Sambo's beautiful little red coat and went away, saying, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle." And Little Black Sambo went on, and by he met another tiger, and it said to him, "Little Black Sambo, I'm going to eat you up." And Little Black Sambo said, "Oh, please, Mr. Tiger, don't eat me up, and I'll give you my beautiful little blue trousers." So the tiger said, "Very well, I won't eat you this time, but you must give me your beautiful little blue trousers." So the tiger got poor Little Black Sambo's beautiful little blue trousers, and went away, saying, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle." And Little Black Sambo went on, and by he met another tiger, and it said to him, "Little Black Sambo, I'm going to eat you up." And Little Black Sambo said, "Oh, please, Mr. Tiger, don't eat me up, and I'll give you my beautiful little purple shoes with crimson soles and crimson linings." But the tiger said, "What use would your shoes be to me? I've got 4 feet, and you've got only 2. You haven't got enough shoes for me." But Little Black Sambo said, "You could wear them on your ears." "So I could," said the tiger. "That's a very good idea. Give them to me, and I won't eat you this time." So the tiger got poor Little Black Sambo's beautiful little purple shoes with crimson soles and crimson linings, and went away, saying, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle." And by Little Black Sambo met another tiger, and it said to him, "Little Black Sambo, I'm going to eat you up." And Little Black Sambo said, "Oh, please, Mr. Tiger, don't eat me up, and I'll give you my beautiful green umbrella." But the tiger said, "How can I carry an umbrella when I need all my paws for walking with?" "You could tie a knot on your tail and carry it that way," said Little Black Sambo. "So I could," said the tiger. "Give it to me, and I won't eat you this time." So he got poor Little Black Sambo's beautiful green umbrella and went away, saying, "Now I'm the grandest tiger in the jungle." And poor Little Black Sambo went away crying because the cruel tigers had taken all his fine clothes. Presently he heard a horrible noise that sounded like grrr, and it got louder and louder. "Oh dear," said Little Black Sambo, "there are all the tigers coming back to eat me up. What shall I do?" So he ran quickly to a palm tree, and peeped round it to see what the matter was. And there he saw all the tigers fighting and disputing which of them was the grandest. And at last they all got so angry that they jumped up and took off all the fine clothes and began to tear each other with their claws and bite each other with their great big white teeth. And they came rolling and tumbling right to the foot of the very tree where Little Black Sambo was hiding, but he jumped quickly in behind the umbrella, and the tigers all caught hold of each other's tails. And they wrangled and scrambled, and so they found themselves in a ring around the tree. Then, when the tigers were very wee and very far away, Little Black Sambo jumped up and called out, "Oh, tigers, why have you taken off all your nice clothes? Don't you want them any more?" But the tigers only answered, "Grrr." Then Little Black Sambo said, "If you want them, say so, or I'll take them away." But the tigers would not let go of each other's tails, and so they could only say, "Grrr." And the tigers were very, very angry, but still they would not let go of each other's tails. And they were so angry that they ran round the tree, trying to eat each other up, and they ran faster and faster, till they were whirling round so fast that you couldn't see their legs at all. And they still ran faster and faster and faster, till they all just melted away, and then there was nothing left but a great big pool of melted butter, or ghee, as it is called in India, round the foot of the tree. Now, Black Jumbo was just coming home from his work, with a great big brass pot in his arms, and when he saw what was left of all the tigers, he said, "Oh, what lovely melted butter! I'll take that home to Black Mumbo for her to cook with." So he put it all into the great big brass pot, and took it home to Black Mumbo to cook with. When Black Mumbo saw the melted butter, wasn't she pleased? "Now," said she, "we'll all have pancakes for supper." So she got flour and eggs and milk and sugar and butter, and she made a huge big plate of most lovely pancakes, and she fried them in the melted butter which the tigers had made, and they were just as yellow and brown as little tigers. And then they all sat down to supper, and Black Mumbo ate 27 pancakes, and Black Jumbo ate 55, but Little Black Sambo ate 169, because he was so hungry. The end of Little Black Sambo, read by Kara Schallenberg in November 2011 in San Diego, California. The Old Woman and Her Pig, from How to Tell Stories to Children and Some Stories to Tell, by Sarah Cohn Bryant. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. It happened one day that as an old woman was sweeping her house, she found a little crooked sixpence. "What," said she, "shall I do with this little sixpence? I will go to market and buy a little pig." On the way home she came to a stile, but the piggy wouldn't go over the stile. So she left the piggy and went on a little further till she met a dog. She said to him, "Dog, dog, bite pig. Piggy won't go over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the dog wouldn't bite piggy. A little further on she met a stick. So she said, "Stick, stick, beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't go over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the stick wouldn't beat the dog. A little further on she met a fire. So she said, "Fire, fire, burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the fire wouldn't burn the stick. A little further on she met some water, so she said, "Water, water, quench fire. Fire won't burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the water wouldn't quench the fire. A little further on she met an ox, so she said, "Ox, ox, drink water. Water won't quench fire. Fire won't burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the ox wouldn't drink the water. A little further on she met a butcher, so she said, "Butcher, butcher, kill ox. Ox won't drink water. Water won't quench fire. Fire won't burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the butcher wouldn't kill the ox. A little further on she met a rope, so she said, "Rope, rope, hang butcher. Butcher won't kill ox. Ox won't drink water. Water won't quench fire. Fire won't burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the rope wouldn't hang the butcher. A little further on she met a rat, so she said, "Rat, rat, gnaw rope. Rope won't hang butcher. Butcher won't kill ox. Ox won't drink water. Water won't quench fire. Fire won't burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the rat wouldn't gnaw the rope. A little further on she met a cat, so she said, "Cat, cat, kill rat. Rat won't gnaw rope. Rope won't hang butcher. Butcher won't kill ox. Ox won't drink water. Water won't quench fire. Fire won't burn stick. Stick won't beat dog. Dog won't bite pig. Piggy won't get over the stile, and I shan't get home tonight." But the cat said to her, "If you will go to yonder cow and fetch me a saucer of milk, I will kill the rat." So away went the old woman to the cow. But the cow refused to give the milk unless the old woman first gave her a handful of hay. So away went the old woman to the haystack, and she brought the hay to the cow. When the cow had eaten the hay, she gave the old woman the milk, and away she went with it in a saucer to the cat. As soon as it had lapped up the milk, the cat began to kill the rat began to gnaw the rope began to hang the butcher began to kill the ox began to drink the water began to quench the fire began to burn the stick began to beat the dog began to bite the little pig in a fright jumped over the stile, and so the old woman did get home that night. End of The Old Woman and Her Pig, read by Kara Schallenberg in November 2011 in San Diego, California. The House That Jack Built by Randolph Caldecott. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. This is the house that Jack built. This is the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the maiden all forlorn that milked the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the man all tattered and torn that kissed the maiden all forlorn that milked the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the priest, all shaven and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt, that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cock that crowed in the morn, that waked the priest all shaven and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt, that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the farmer who sowed the corn, that fed the cock that crowed in the morn, that waked the priest all shaven and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog, that worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt, that lay in the house that Jack built. End of The House That Jack Built, read by Kara Schallenberg, November 2011 in San Diego, California. Mother Goose, the original Volland edition, edited by Eulalie Osgood Grover. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Old Mother Goose, when she wanted to wander, would ride through the air on a very fine gander. Cock-a-doodle-doo, my dame has lost her shoe, my master's lost his fiddlestick, and knows not what to do. Peter, Peter, pumpkin eater, had a wife and couldn't keep her. He put her in a pumpkin shell, and then he kept her very well. Peter, Peter, pumpkin eater, had another and didn't love her. Peter learned to read and spell, and then he loved her very well. Ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire, your children will burn. One misty, moisty morning, when cloudy was the weather, I chanced to meet an old man clothed all in leather. He began to compliment, and I began to grin. How do you do, and how do you do, and how do you do again? I like little pussy, her coat is so warm, and if I don't hurt her, she'll do me no harm. So I'll not pull her tail, nor drive her away, but pussy and I very gently will play. Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep, and can't tell where to find them. Leave them alone, and they'll come home, and bring their tails behind them. Little Nanny Etticoat, in a white petticoat, and a red nose, the longer she stands, the shorter she grows. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jump over the candlestick. Pretty John Watts, we are troubled with rats. Will you drive them out of the house? We have mice too in plenty that feast in the pantry, but let them stay and nibble away. What harm in a little brown mouse? I'll tell you a story about Mary Morey, and now my story's begun. I'll tell you another about her brother, and now my story's done. Hush-a-bye, baby, upon the tree-top. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Down tumbles cradle and baby and all. Ride away, Johnny shall ride, and he shall have Pussy-cat tied to one side, and he shall have Little Dog tied to the other, and Johnny shall ride to see his grandmother. Dickory, dickory, dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down. Dickory, dickory, dock. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T, U, V, W, X, and Y, and Z. Now I've said my ABC. Tell me what you think of me. The little robin grieves when the snow is on the ground, for the trees have no leaves, and no berries can be found. The air is cold, the worms are hid, for robin here what can be done? Let's strew around some crumbs of bread, and then he'll live till snow is gone. Little Tommy Tittlemouse lived in a little house. He caught fishes in other men's ditches. About the bush, Willie, about the beehive, about the bush, Willie, I'll meet thee alive. Baa, baa, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, marry, have I, 3 bags full. 1 for my master, 1 for my dame, but none for the little boy who cries in the lane. Hickety-pickety, my black hen, she lays eggs for gentlemen. Gentlemen come every day to see what my black hen doth lay. Willie boy, where are you going? Oh, let us go with you this sunshiny day. I'm going to the meadow to see them a-mowing. I'm going to help the girls turn the new hay. 3 children sliding on the ice upon a summer's day. As it fell out, they all fell in, the rest they ran away. Oh, had these children been at school, or sliding on dry ground, 10,000 pounds to 1 penny, they had not then been drowned. Ye parents who have children dear, and ye too who have none, if you would keep them safe abroad, pray keep them safe at home. Wee Willie Winkie runs through the town, upstairs and downstairs in his nightgown, tapping at the window, crying at the lock. Are the babes in their beds? For it's now 10 o'clock. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread. She whipped them all soundly and put them to bed. There was a man, and he had naught, and robbers came to rob him. He crept up to the chimney top, and then they thought they had him. But he got down the other side, and then they could not find him. He ran 14 miles in 15 days, and never looked behind him. There was an old man, and he had a calf, and that's half. He took him out of the stall, and put him on the wall, and that's all. Bow, wow, wow, whose dog art thou? Little Tom Tinker's dog, bow, wow, wow. Pussy-cat sits by the fire, how can she be fair? In walks the little dog, says, Pussy, are you there? How do you do, Mistress Pussy, how do you do? I thank you kindly, little dog, I fare as well as you. Here am I, little jumping Joan. When nobody's with me, I'm always alone. There was an old woman lived under the hill, and if she's not gone, she lives there still. Baked apples she sold, and cranberry pies, and she's the old woman that never told lies. Simple Simon met a pieman going to the fair. Says Simple Simon to the pieman, pray let me taste your ware. Says the pieman to Simple Simon, show me first your penny. Says Simple Simon to the pieman, indeed I have not any. Sing a song of sixpence, a bag full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing, and wasn't this a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in the parlour, counting out his money. The queen was in the kitchen, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. There came a little blackbird, and nipped off her nose. To market to buy a fat pig, home again, jiggity-jig. Ride a cock-horse to Banbury Cross, to see what Tommy can buy. A penny white loaf, a penny white cake, and a twopenny apple pie. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating some curds and whey. There came a great spider, and sat down beside her, and frightened Miss Muffet away. 3 wise men of Gotham went to sea in a bowl, and if the bowl had been stronger, my song had been longer. There were 2 birds sat upon a stone, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. One flew away, and then there was one, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. The other flew after, and then there was none, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. So the poor stone was left all alone, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. One of these little birds back again flew, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. The other came after, and then there were 2, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. Says one to the other, pray how do you do, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. Very well, thank you, and pray how are you, fal-de-ral-lal-de-ral-laddy. Bye, baby bunting, father's gone a-hunting, mother's gone a-milking, sister's gone a-silking, and brother's gone to buy a skin to wrap the baby bunting in. Little Polly Flinders sat among the cinders, warming her pretty little toes. Her mother came and caught her, and whipped her little daughter for spoiling her nice new clothes. Tom, Tom, the piper's son, stole a pig, and away he run. The pig was eat, and Tom was beat, and Tom ran crying down the street. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. A diller, a dollar, a 10 o'clock scholar, what makes you come so soon? You used to come at 10 o'clock, but now you come at noon. Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London to see the Queen. Pussycat, pussycat, what did you there? I frightened a little mouse under the chair. Pat a cake, baker's man. So I do, master, as fast as I can. Pat it and prick it and mark it with T, and then it will serve for Tommy and me. Little boy blue, come blow your horn. The sheep's in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. What, is this the way you mind your sheep? Under the haycock, fast asleep? There was an old woman tossed in a blanket, 17 times as high as the moon. But where she was going no mortal could tell, for under her arm she carried a broom. Old woman, old woman, old woman, said I, whither, ah whither so high? To sweep the cobwebs from the sky, and I'll be with you by and by. Cold and raw the north winds blow, bleak in the morning early. All the hills are covered with snow, and the winter's now come fairly. The man in the moon came down too soon to inquire the way to Norwich. The man in the south, he burnt his mouth, while eating cold plum porridge. 24 tailors went to kill a snail. The best man among them durst not touch her tail. She put out her horns like a little Kylo cow. Run, tailors, run, or she'll kill you all just now. Lucy Locket lost her pocket. Kitty Fisher found it. There was not a penny in it, but a ribbon round it. Little Tom Tucker sings for his supper. What shall he eat? White bread and butter. How will he cut it without e'er a knife? How will he marry without e'er a wife? To bed, says Sleepy Head. Let's stay a while, says Slow. Put on the pot, says Greedy Sot. We'll sup before we go. Diddle-diddle dumpling, my son John, went to bed with his breeches on. One stocking off and one stocking on. Diddle-diddle dumpling, my son John. Hi, diddle-diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such craft, and the dish ran away with the spoon. 2 gray kits and the gray kit's mother all went over the bridge together. The bridge broke down, they all fell in. May the rats go with you, says Tom Bolin. Robin and Richard were 2 pretty men. They stayed in bed till the clock struck 10. Then up starts Robin and looks at the sky. Oh, brother Richard, the sun's very high. You go before with the bottle and bag, and I will come after on little Jack Nag. Is John Smith within? Yes, that he is. Can he set a shoe? Aye, marry, too. Here a nail and there a nail, tick-tack-too. I had a little hen, the prettiest ever seen. She washed me the dishes and kept the house clean. She went to the mill to fetch me some flour, and always got home in less than an hour. She baked me my bread, she brewed me my ale. She sat by the fire and told many a fine tale. When I was a little boy I lived by myself, and all the bread and cheese I got I put upon a shelf. The rats and the mice, they made such a strife, I was forced to go to London to buy me a wife. The streets were so broad and the lanes were so narrow, I was forced to bring my wife home in a wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow broke, and my wife had a fall, and down came the wheelbarrow, wife and all. 'Twas once upon a time, when Jenny Wren was young, so daintily she danced and so prettily she sung. Robin Redbreast lost his heart, for he was a gallant bird, so he doffed his hat to Jenny Wren, requesting to be heard. "Oh, dearest Jenny Wren, if you will but be mine, you shall feed on cherry pie and drink new currant wine. I'll dress you like a goldfinch or any peacock gay, so, dearest Jen, if you'll be mine, let us appoint the day." Jenny blushed behind her fan, and thus declared her mind: "Since, dearest Bob, I love you well, I take your offer kind. Cherry pie is very nice, and so is currant wine, but I must wear my plain brown gown, and never go too fine." How many days has my baby to play? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. Little King Boggin, he built a fine hall, pie crust and pastry crust, that was the wall. The windows were made of black puddings and white, and slated with pancakes, you ne'er saw the like. As I went to Bonner, I met a pig without a wig, upon my word and honor. Little Jack Horner sat in a corner, eating a Christmas pie. He put in his thumb, and pulled out a plum, and said, "Oh, what a good boy am I!" Miss Jane had a bag, and a mouse was in it. She opened the bag, he was out in a minute. The cat saw him jump and run under the table, and the dog said, "Catch him, puss, as soon as you're able." The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole the tarts, and took them clean away. The King of Hearts called for the tarts, and beat the knave full sore. The Knave of Hearts brought back the tarts, and vowed he'd steal no more. Goosey, goosey, gander, where dost thou wander? Upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. There I met an old man that wouldn't say his prayers. I took him by his hind legs, and threw him downstairs. See-saw, Margery Daw, Jacky shall have a new master. Jacky must have but a penny a day, because he can work no faster. Daffy-down-dilly is now come to town, with a petticoat green, and a bright yellow gown. Cock, 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 I've laid an egg. Am I to gang barefoot? Hen, 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 I've been up and down to every shop in town, and cannot find a shoe to fit your foot, if I'd crow my heart out. The Lion and the Unicorn were fighting for the crown. The Lion beat the Unicorn all about the town. Some gave them white bread, and some gave them brown. Some gave them plum cake, and sent them out of town. Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers three. Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells, and pretty maids all in a row. Bonny lass, pretty lass, wilt thou be mine? Thou shalt not wash dishes, nor yet serve the swine. Thou shalt sit on a cushion, and sew a fine seam, and thou shalt eat strawberries, sugar, and cream. Handy Spandy, Jacky Dandy, loves plum cake and sugar candy. He bought some at a grocer's shop, and pleased away went hop, hop, hop. Ding dong bell, the cat's in the well. Who put her in? Little Johnny Green. Who pulled her out? Great Johnny Stout. What a naughty boy was that to drown poor Pussy Cat, who never did him any harm, and killed the mice in his father's barn. This pig went to market, that pig stayed home. This pig had roast meat, that pig had none. This pig went to the barn door, and cried week, week for more. There were two blackbirds sitting on a hill, one named Jack, and the other named Jill. Fly away, Jack, fly away, Jill. Come again, Jack, come again, Jill. Cross patch, draw the latch, sit by the fire and spin. Take a cup and drink it up, then call your neighbors in. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor dog a bone, but when she came there, the cupboard was bare, and so the poor dog had none. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Spell me that in 4 letters. I will. T-H-A-T. Polly put the kettle on, Polly put the kettle on, Polly put the kettle on, we'll all have tea. Sukey, take it off again, Sukey, take it off again, Sukey, take it off again, they've all gone away. The sow came in with the saddle, the little pig rocked the cradle. The dish jumped up on the table to see the pot swallow the ladle. The spit that stood behind the door threw the pudding stick on the floor. Oddsplit, said the gridiron, can't you agree? I'm the head constable, bring them to me. Little Robin Redbreast sat upon a tree. Up went the pussy-cat, and down went he. Down came pussy-cat, away Robin ran. Says little Robin Redbreast, catch me if you can. Little Robin Redbreast jumped upon a spade. Pussy-cat jumped after him, and then he was afraid. Little Robin chirped and sang, and what did Pussy say? Pussy-cat said, mew, 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 and Robin flew away. A farmer went trotting upon his grey mare, bumpety, bumpety, bump, with his daughter behind him so rosy and fair, lumpety, lumpety, lump. A raven cried, croak, and they all tumbled down, bumpety, bumpety, bump. The mare broke her knees, and the farmer his crown, lumpety, lumpety, lump. The mischievous raven flew laughing away, bumpety, bumpety, bump, and vowed he would serve them the same next day, lumpety, lumpety, lump. There was an old woman sold puddings and pies. She went to the mill, and dust flew in her eyes, while through the streets to all she meets she ever cries, hot pies, hot pies. Old woman, shall we go a-shearing? Speak a little louder, sir, I'm very thick a-hearing. Old woman, shall I kiss you dearly? Thank you, kind sir, I hear very clearly. My little old man and I fell out. I'll tell you what 'twas all about. I had money and he had none, and that's the way the noise begun. Jack Sprat could eat no fat, his wife could eat no lean, so 'twixt them both they cleared the cloth and licked the platter clean. There was an old woman, and what do you think? She lived upon nothing but victuals and drink. Victuals and drink were the chief of her diet, and yet this old woman could never be quiet. What's the news of the day, good neighbor, I pray? They say the balloon has gone up to the moon. There was a crooked man, and he went a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence against a crooked stile. He bought a crooked cat, which caught a crooked mouse, and they all lived together in a little crooked house. There was a piper had a cow, and he had naught to give her. He pulled out his pipes and played her a tune, and bade the cow consider. The cow considered very well, and gave the piper a penny, and bade him play the other tune, Corn rigs are bonny. The man in the wilderness asked me how many strawberries grew in the sea. I answered him as I thought good, as many red herrings as grew in the wood. Hark, hark, the dogs do bark, the beggars are coming to town, some in rags, some in tags, and some in velvet gown. As I was going to St. Ives, I met 7 wives. Every wife had 7 sacks, every sack had 7 cats, every cat had 7 kits. Kits, cats, sacks, and wives. How many were going to St. Ives? I had a little husband no bigger than my thumb. I put him in a pint pot, and there I bid him drum. I bought a little handkerchief to wipe his little nose, and a pair of little garters to tie his little hose. Great A, little A, bouncing B, the cat's in the cupboard, and she can't see. Bat, bat, come under my hat, and I'll give you a slice of bacon, and when I bake, I'll give you a cake, if I am not mistaken. As I was going up Primrose Hill was dirty. There I met a pretty lass, and she dropped me a curtsy. Little lass, pretty lass, blessings light upon you. If I had half a crown a day, I'd spend it all upon you. There was a little boy went into a barn, and lay down on some hay. A calf came out and smelled about, and the little boy ran away. When good King Arthur ruled his land, he was a goodly king. He stole 3 pecks of barley meal to make a bag pudding. A bag pudding the king did make, and stuffed it well with plums, and in it put great lumps of fat, as big as my 2 thumbs. The king and queen did eat thereof, and noblemen beside, and what they could not eat that night, the queen next morning fried. Jacky, come give me your fiddle, if ever you mean to thrive. Nay, I'll not give my fiddle to any man alive. If I should give my fiddle, they'll think that I'm gone mad, for many a joyful day my fiddle and I have had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I caught a hare alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I let him go again. The north wind doth blow, and we shall have snow, and what will poor Robin do then, poor thing? He'll sit in the barn and keep himself warm, and hide his head under his wing, poor thing. You owe me 5 shillings, say the bells of St. Helens. When will you pay me, say the bells of Old Bailey? When I grow rich, say the bells of Shoreditch. When will that be, say the bells of Stepney? I do not know, says the great bell of Bow. 2 sticks and an apple, ring the bells of Whitechapel. Halfpence and farthings, say the bells of St. Martin's. Kettles and pans, say the bells of St. Anne's. Brickbats and tiles, say the bells of St. Giles. Old shoes and slippers, say the bells of St. Peter's. Pokers and tongs, say the bells of St. John's. There was a man in our town, and he was wondrous wise. He jumped into a bramble bush, and scratched out both his eyes. And when he saw his eyes were out, with all his might and main, he jumped into another bush, and scratched them in again. End of Mother Goose, read by Kara Schallenberg in November 2011 in San Diego, California. The Old Man's Bag by T.W.H. Crosland. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 1. The old man lived in a wood. He had a wife and a bag. The bag was quite a large bag. One day the old man went out for a walk. He took the bag with him. By and by he saw a hen in a field. Now, when you see a hen in a field, you say, "Chuck, chuck." The old man said, "Chuck, chuck," and the hen came to him, so that he caught her by the neck and put her in his bag. She made a great to-do, but he put her in. On his way home, just as he turned a corner, the old man saw a policeman. The policeman had a red suit. He was one of those policemen who wear red suits because they are tired of wearing blue. The red policeman looked very hard at the old man, and very hard at his bag. In fact, he looked so very, very hard that the old man got frightened and turned round and ran away. Of course, the red policeman ran after him. When they had run about 5 miles, the old man dropped his bag in order that he might run quicker. The red policeman had made up his mind to catch him, so that he did not stop to pick up the bag, but kept on running after the old man. At length, when they had run about 10 miles, he caught him. "Now, sir," said the red policeman, "what have you got in that bag?" "Nothing," said the old man. "Oh, you wicked old person," said the red policeman, "you know perfectly well that you have a hen in it, but you must come back with me, and we will soon find out." So the red policeman took the old man back to the place where he had dropped the bag. The bag was there, and the red policeman picked it up and opened it with great care, but the hen had got away. There was a big hole in the corner of the bag, and through this the hen had squeezed herself and run home as fast as ever she could. When the policeman found that the bag was empty, he looked much puzzled. The old man, for his part, smiled a great deal. "I told you there was nothing in it," he said. The red policeman said, "Well, I expect I shall have to let you go this time, but mind you don't do it again." And the old man went home quite cheerfully with his bag under his arm. Chapter 2. When the old man got home to his house in the wood, he hung the bag up tidily on a nail. Then he sat down in a chair and began to laugh. He laughed for nearly a quarter of an hour by the clock. At length his wife came in to him from the garden and said, "Whatever are you laughing at?" "Oh," replied the old man, holding his sides, "I am so amused." Then he went on laughing. He laughed so much indeed that the tears came into his eyes and he nearly choked. His wife had to pat his back and give him a drink of water to put him right. Then he told her what had happened, how he had put a hen in his bag, how the red policeman had run after him, how he dropped the bag and let the policeman catch him, and how when the policeman took him back to the bag, the hen was gone. "Did she open the bag and fly away?" said the old woman. "No," said the old man, "she got out through that hole in the corner." "Ah," said the old woman, "I must sew up that hole." and she took the bag down from its nail and sewed up the hole, for she was a very neat woman, and she did not like to see holes in bags. Chapter 3. The next day was market day. On market day, people who have butter or cheese to sell take it into the market to sell it, and people who have money and happen to want butter or cheese go into the market to buy it. The old man's wife had nothing to sell, neither had she any money, but she wanted some butter very badly, so she took the old man's bag off the nail and carried it to market. She walked round the market with the bag under her arm and looked at all the stalls and inquired how much the strawberries were a pound, but she did not buy anything because she had no money. In a little while she came to a stall on which there were 6 rolls of fine fresh butter, and in front of them was a card on which the man who brought the butter to market had written, "Butter is cheap today." "I am glad butter is cheap today," said the old woman to herself, and when the man who had brought the butter to market was not looking, she picked up a roll and dropped it into her bag. Then she ran away as fast as she could. When she got round the corner, the red policeman saw her. He shouted out, "What have you got in that bag?" "Nothing," said the old woman, still running. But the policeman kept running after her. When they had run about 5 miles, the old woman dropped the bag so that she might run quicker. The policeman, however, had made up his mind to catch her, and when they had run about 10 miles, he caught her. "Now," he said, "you must come back with me to your bag, and we will see if there is anything in it." The old man's wife said that she was sure there was nothing in it. "All right," said the policeman, "but if you don't mind, we will go back and see." So they went back to the bag, and the policeman opened it with great care. Inside he found the roll of butter. The old man's wife began to cry. "Oh dear," she said, "what a pity it is that I sewed up that hole." "Why?" asked the red policeman. "Because if I had not sewn up the hole, the butter might have got out like my husband's hen." "You are a very foolish old woman," said the policeman. "Do you not know that a roll of butter cannot walk like a hen?" "Is that really so?" said the old woman. Well, but I have seen butter run when it was melted." "Never mind that," said the red policeman. "You will have to come with me to prison." "I am too busy to go with you just now," said the old woman, "and my husband wants the butter for his tea, but if you like to call for me in the morning and the weather is fine, I will come with you with pleasure." "You are very polite," said the red policeman. "If you had been rude, I should have made you go with me now. As it is, I will call for you in the morning, providing it doesn't rain." "Thank you so much," said the old woman. And she shook the red policeman warmly by the hand and went off to her husband. Chapter 4. When she got home, the old man was sat in his chair by the fire. She could see by his face that he was in a bad temper, but she went up to him and kissed him and said, "Please don't be grumpy, for I have brought you something very nice for your tea." "What is it?" said the old man. "A hen?" "No," she said. "People don't have hens for tea, do they?" "Perhaps not," said the old man. "But if you had brought a hen, she might have laid an egg, and I could have had that. You know very well that I am fond of new-laid eggs." "New-laid eggs are all very fine," said the old woman, "but butter is cheap today. I have brought you a beautiful fresh roll." The old man smacked his lips. While they were having tea, the old woman began to laugh very much. "What are you laughing at?" said the old man. "Did you meet the red policeman?" "Yes, I did," said the old woman. "And did he catch you?" "Yes, he did," said the old woman. "And he let you go?" "Yes, he did," said the old woman. "Why?" "Because I was polite to him," said the old woman. "Well, I never," said the old man. "But he is coming for me in the morning, providing the weather is fine," said the old woman. The old man sat still in his chair and thought a great deal. And by he said, "If you had asked the red policeman to tea like a sensible woman, he might have let you off altogether." "I shall know better next time," said the old woman. Chapter 5. When the old man and his wife woke up next morning, they looked out of the window and saw that the weather was quite fine. The old man began to whistle and sing. He always did this when the weather was fine, because he said fine weather always made him feel in such good spirits. In a little while the old woman began to sing too. Then the old man stopped. "What are you singing for?" he said to the old woman. "I feel in such good spirits," the old woman replied. "Oh, you do you?" said the old man. "You appear to forget that the red policeman is coming for you." oh dear, said the old woman. What a bad memory I have, to be sure. Whatever shall I do? And she burst into tears. There, said the old man, don't cry. We will give him 6 pence when he calls, and ask him to have a piece of bread and butter with jam on it. Then perhaps he will go away. They went downstairs and had breakfast. They had just finished when there came an awfully loud knock at the door. The old woman went very pale. It is the red policeman, she said. The old man went to open the door, but the old woman pulled him back. You are forgetting the 6 pence, she said, and the piece of bread and butter with jam on it. Of course, said the old man, and he felt in his pocket for 6 pence, while the old woman cut a nice, large, thick slice of bread and covered it with butter and jam. Perhaps, after all, said the old man, we had better not open the door, but hand the policeman the 6 pence and the bread and butter with jam on it through the window. So he opened the window a little way and held out the 6 pence and the bread and butter with jam on it to the person outside. Thanks very much, said the person outside, and he put the 6 pence in his pocket and began to eat the bread and butter with jam on it. And when he had finished eating, he knocked again very loudly at the door. Go away, said the old man. My wife is not coming out with you today. I don't want your wife to come out with me, said the person at the door. I have called to look at the gas meter. We haven't got a gas meter now, said the old man. We burn nothing but electric light. Many, many thanks, said the person at the door, and he went away. I feel all of a flutter, said the old woman, sinking into a chair. So do I, said the old man, and he has got my 6 pence too. Chapter 6. In a little while the old woman began to put the breakfast things away. Afterwards she took up the table cover and went out into the garden with it to shake off the breadcrumbs. As she stepped out of the door, who should step in but the red policeman? The old woman trembled very much when she saw him go in, and she shook the table cover several times over in order that she might think what to say to the red policeman. Just then it began to rain. The old woman ran into the house at once. Good morning, madam, said the red policeman, and he made a nice bow. Good morning, sir, said the old woman. What, might I ask, brings you here? I have called, madam, replied the red policeman, making another bow, for the purpose of taking you with me to prison for stealing a roll of butter. Where is the roll of butter? Said the old woman. The policeman looked very hard at the butter dish, but there was no butter in it. The old man and his wife and the gas man had eaten it all. I beg your pardon, I am sure, said the policeman. The idea, said the old woman. Besides, you said you would not call this morning unless the weather were fine, and you see for yourself that it is now raining cats and dogs. I am truly sorry, madam, said the policeman, bowing once more. When I come to think of it, I did say that I would not call if it rained. Pray forgive me. We all make mistakes sometimes, you know. I don't like such mistakes, said the old woman. Now kindly leave the house. Oh, please don't turn me out, said the red policeman. It is raining very hard indeed, and I might get my feet wet. We should always be kind, said the old woman, even to policemen, and as it is raining, and I left my umbrella in an omnibus the other day, I will lend you my sunshade, but please go. The old woman put the sunshade into the policeman's hand. He looked at it very hard. It is a blue one, he said. It is not fashionable to wear a blue sunshade with a red suit. Thank you all the same, but I think I will go without it. He went. The old man, who had been quietly laughing to himself, danced about with joy when he saw the policeman leave. Then he ran to the window and put his head out and called out after the policeman, I say, when your clothes are quite wet enough, be sure you come back and have them dried. But the red policeman took no notice of him. Chapter 7. The red policeman got so wet that by the time he reached his house all the dye had come out of his suit. He felt very angry indeed. I must try not to make mistakes, he said. Sometimes they bring one into fearful trouble. As my suit is spoilt, I think I will give up being a policeman. A policeman without a suit is no good at all. So he went to bed and had hot bricks to his feet and a mustard plaster on his chest, and sent for the tailor to measure him for a new suit of clothes. When the tailor came, the policeman said to him, I am quite tired of being a policeman, and I think I should now like to be a soldier. Please measure me for a soldier's suit. The coat you will make of green cloth, and the trousers must be yellow." "But," said the tailor, "soldiers wear scarlet coats and blue trousers." "That is just the point," said the policeman. "I don't want to be like all the others. If I did, I should go in for khaki. Just you do what I tell you, and make me a green coat and yellow trousers at once." The tailor said, "Yes, sir," and went away. In a few days he called again, bringing with him a yellow coat and green trousers. The policeman could have cried with disappointment. "Didn't I tell you quite plainly that I wanted a green coat and yellow trousers?" "I am truly sorry, sir," said the tailor, "but as you no doubt know, the best of us make mistakes sometimes." "There is something in that," said the policeman, "and if the suit fits me, I will forgive you." Then he went into his dressing room and put on the yellow coat and the green trousers. They fitted him beautifully, so that he forgave the tailor and sent round to him to say that he would try to pay his bill when he got some money. After looking at himself a good deal in the mirror, the policeman went out into the street and began to strut about in his new clothes. "This is much better than being a policeman," he said. "A policeman has little to do, but a soldier has nothing to do till he is sent for to fight. By the way, I must go and buy a sword, and then I will go up to the old man's house and let him see me in my new clothes. Perhaps he will give me 2 halfpennies to put in the pockets." He bought his sword at the toy shop and went straight to the old man's house. When he got there, the old woman was in the garden knocking apples off a tree with a clothes prop. No sooner did she see the policeman in his yellow coat and green trousers than she ran screaming into the house and hid herself under the bed. But when the old man saw him, he shouted, "Hurrah, hurrah! The red policeman has turned soldier. Now we needn't be afraid of him any more." Then he called upstairs to his wife, "Come down at once and get me my bag." The old woman came downstairs quickly. She took down the bag from its nail and handed it to her husband. "Run," she said, "as hard as you can, and bring me a hen and anything else nice that takes your fancy. Bags were made to put things in, and the red policeman, the soldier, that is to say, will stay to dinner." The soldier sat down in the chair and lit his pipe, and the old man went out with the bag. Very soon he returned with 2 hens, a fat duck, several rolls of butter, a large piece of bacon, some cabbages, some ice cream, and 2 pots of marmalade. The old woman cooked everything but the ice cream and the marmalade, and they had a very good dinner indeed. "This is much better than being a policeman," said the soldier when they had finished. "I should just think it was," said the old man. "And so should I," said the old woman. "Now I must wish you both good evening," said the soldier, "for I hear the bugle calling." Chapter 8. When a soldier hears the bugle calling, he is bound to go, even if he would like to have stayed for supper. That is why the soldier went. "I'm glad I'm not a soldier," said the old man, "because I do not have to go when the bugle calls." "No," said the old woman, "but you have to go when I tell you, which is pretty much the same thing." "Perhaps it is," said the old man. "And I think," said the old woman, "that it might be just as well for you to go out this evening with the bag and get a few nice little things for breakfast and dinner tomorrow. For when you come to think of it, there is no reason why the soldier should not take it into his head to be a red policeman again, and if he did, he would run after us when he saw us with the bag. So that we had better get what we want before he changes his mind." "A very good idea, my dear," said the old man. "Give me the bag, and I will go out at once." The old woman gave him the bag, and off he went. He was away a very long time. Indeed, he did not get back till nearly midnight. When he set the bag down on the table, the old woman could see that he had got a good many things, because the bag bulged so. "How good of you," she said. "Now show me what you have got." Then the old man opened the bag. First he pulled out a pretty little kitten with her mother, an old gray cat. "Very nice," said the old woman, "but we can't cook them." "You cooked the hens," said the old man. Then he pulled out a pillowcase full of hay. "Quite nice," said the old woman, "but we can't cook it." "You cooked the cabbages," said the old man. Then he pulled out a box full of pieces of broken glass. "Beautiful," said the old woman, "but we can't eat it." "You ate the marmalade fast enough," said the old man. Then the old woman said, If you go on talking so foolishly, I shall be very cross. Turn that cat and her kitten out at once, burn the hay, and throw the broken glass out of the window." "And what shall I do with the bag?" said the old man. "You can do just as you please with the bag," said the old woman. "I am going to bed." And off she went. The old man opened the door and turned out the cat and her kitten. Then he burnt the hay a little bit at a time on the fire and threw the broken glass out of the window. After doing this, he sat down in his chair to think. "What shall I do with the bag?" he said to himself. "My wife said I might do what I pleased with it. Perhaps I had better burn it." So he cut it in pieces with a knife and burnt the pieces on the fire. In the morning, when the old woman came downstairs to breakfast, she looked on the nail for the bag, but of course it was not there. "What have you done with the bag?" she called to the old man. "I have burnt it," said the old man. "Why did you burn it?" said the old woman. "Guess," said the old man. The old woman guessed and guessed and guessed and guessed and guessed, but she could not guess right, and the old man had to keep on saying, "Guess again, guess again, guess again." Now, why did the old man burn his bag? You must get your mamma to tell you. End of The Old Man's Bag by T.W.H. Crosland, read by Kara Schallenberg in November 2011 in San Diego, California. Struwwelpeter, Merry Stories and Funny Pictures by Heinrich Hoffmann. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. When the children have been good, that is, be it understood, good at meal times, good at play, good all night, and good all day, they shall have the pretty things Merry Christmas always brings. Naughty romping girls and boys tear their clothes and make a noise, spoil their pinafores and frocks, and deserve no Christmas box. Such as these shall never look at this pretty picture book. Shock-headed Peter. Just look at him. There he stands, with his nasty hair and hands. See, his nails are never cut. They are grimed as black as soot. And the sloven, I declare, never once has combed his hair. Anything to me is sweeter than to see shock-headed Peter. Cruel Frederick. Here is cruel Frederick, see? A horrid, wicked boy was he. He caught the flies, poor little things, and then tore off their tiny wings. He killed the birds and broke the chairs, and threw the kitten down the stairs. And oh, far worse than all beside, he whipped his Mary till she cried. The trough was full, and faithful Tray came out to drink one sultry day. He wagged his tail and wet his lip, when cruel Fred snatched up a whip, and whipped poor Tray till he was sore, and kicked and whipped him more and more. At this good Tray grew very red, and growled, and bit him till he bled. Then you should only have been by to see how Fred did scream and cry. So Frederick had to go to bed. His leg was very sore and red. The doctor came and shook his head, and made a very great to-do, and gave him nasty physic too. But good dog Tray is happy now. He has no time to say bow wow. He seats himself in Frederick's chair, and laughs to see the nice things there. The soup he swallows, sup by sup, and eats the pies and puddings up. The Dreadful Story of Harriet and the Matches. It almost makes me cry to tell what foolish Harriet befell. Mamma and nurse went out one day, and left her all alone at play. Now, on the table close at hand, a box of matches chanced to stand, and kind mamma and nurse had told her that if she touched them, they would scold her. But Harriet said, "Oh, what a pity, for when they burn it is so pretty. They crackle so, and spit, and flame. Mamma too often does the same." The pussy-cats heard this, and they began to hiss, and stretch their claws, and raise their paws. "Meow," they said, "meow, meow, you'll burn to death if you do so." But Harriet would not take advice. She lit a match, it was so nice. It crackled so, it burned so clear, exactly like the picture here. She jumped for joy, and ran about, and was too pleased to put it out. The pussy-cats saw this, and said, "Oh, naughty, naughty miss," and stretched their claws, and raised their paws. 'Tis very, very wrong, you know. Meow, 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 meow. You will be burnt if you do so. And see, oh, what dreadful thing! The fire has caught her apron string. Her apron burns, her arms, her hair, she burns all over everywhere. Then how the pussy-cats did mew! What else, poor pussies, could they do? They screamed for help, 'twas all in vain. So then they said, we'll scream again. Make haste, meow, meow. She'll burn to death, we told her so. So she was burnt, with all her clothes, and arms, and hands, and eyes, and nose, till she had nothing more to lose, except her little scarlet shoes, and nothing else but these was found among her ashes on the ground. And when the good cats sat beside the smoking ashes, how they cried, meow, 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 what will mamma and nursey do? Their tears ran down their cheeks so fast, they made a little pond at last. The Story of the Inky Boys. As he had often done before, the woolly-headed blackamoor, one nice fine summer's day, went out to see the shops and walk about. And as he found it hot, poor fellow, he took with him his green umbrella. Then Edward, little noisy wag, ran out and laughed and waved his flag, and William came in jacket trim and brought his wooden hoop with him. And Arthur, too, snatched up his toys and joined the other naughty boys. So one and all set up a roar, and laughed and hooted more and more, and kept on singing, only think, "Oh, Blackie, you're as black as ink." Now, tall Agrippa lived close by, so tall he almost touched the sky. He had a mighty inkstand, too, in which a great goose feather grew. He called out in an angry tone, "Boys, leave the blackamoor alone, for if he tries with all his might, he cannot change from black to white." But they did not mind a bit what great Agrippa said of it, but went on laughing as before and hooting at the blackamoor. Then great Agrippa foams with rage. Look at him on this very page. He seizes Arthur, seizes Ned, takes William by his little head, and they may scream and kick and call, into the ink he dips them all, into the inkstand 1, 2, 3, till they are black as black can be. Turn over now, and you shall see. See, there they are, and there they run. The blackamoor enjoys the fun. They have been made as black as crows, quite black all over, eyes and nose and legs and arms and heads and toes, and trousers, pinafores, and toys, the silly little inky boys, because they set up such a roar and teased the harmless blackamoor. The Story of the Man that Went Out Shooting. This is the man that shoots the hares. This is the coat he always wears. With game bag, powder horn, and gun, he's going out to have some fun. He finds it hard, without a pair of spectacles, to shoot the hare. The hare sits snug in leaves and grass, and laughs to see the green man pass. Now as the sun grew very hot, and he a heavy gun had got, he lay down underneath a tree and went to sleep, as you may see. And while he slept like any top, the little hare came, hop, 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 took gun and spectacles, and then on her hind legs went off again. The green man wakes and sees her place the spectacles upon her face, and now she's trying all she can to shoot the sleepy green-coat man. He cries and screams and runs away. The hare runs after him all day, and hears him call out everywhere, "Help! Fire! Help! The hare! The hare!" At last he stumbled at the well, head over ears, and in he fell. The hare stopped short, took aim, and hark! Bang went the gun. She missed her mark. The poor man's wife was drinking up her coffee in her coffee cup. The gun shot cup and saucer through. "Oh dear," cried she, "what shall I do?" There lived close by the cottage there the hare's own child, the little hare, and while she stood upon her toes, the coffee fell and burned her nose. "Oh dear," she cried, with spoon in hand, "such fun I do not understand." The Story of Little Suck-a-Thumb. One day Mamma said, "Conrad, dear, I must go out and leave you here. But mind now, Conrad, what I say. Don't suck your thumb while I'm away. The great tall tailor always comes to little boys who suck their thumbs, and ere they dream what he's about, he takes his great sharp scissors out and cuts their thumbs clean off, and then, you know, they never grow again." Mamma had scarcely turned her back. The thumb was in, alack, alack. The door flew open, in he ran, the great long-legged scissor man. "Oh, children, see, the tailor's come and caught out little Suck-a-Thumb. Snip, snap, snip, the scissors go, and Conrad cries out, oh, oh, oh! Snip, snap, snip, they go so fast that both his thumbs are off at last. Mamma comes home, there Conrad stands, and looks quite sad, and shows his hands. Ah, said Mamma, I knew he'd come to naughty little Suck-a-Thumb. The story of Augustus, who would not have any soup. Augustus was a chubby lad, fat ruddy cheeks Augustus had, and everybody saw with joy the plump and hearty healthy boy. He ate and drank as he was told, and never let his soup get cold. But one day, one cold winter's day, he screamed out, "Take the soup away! Oh, take the nasty soup away! I won't have any soup today." Next day, now look, the picture shows how lank and lean Augustus grows. Yet, though he feels so weak and ill, the naughty fellow cries out still, "Not any soup for me, I say! Oh, take the nasty soup away! I won't have any soup today." The third day comes. Oh, what a sin to make himself so pale and thin! Yet when the soup is put on table, he screams as loud as he is able, "Not any soup for me, I say! Oh, take the nasty soup away! I won't have any soup today." Look at him now, the fourth day's come. He scarcely weighs a sugar plum. He's like a little bit of thread. And on the fifth day he was dead. The story of Fidgety Philip. Let me see if Philip can be a little gentleman. Let me see if he is able to sit still for once at table. Thus Papa bade Phil behave, and Mamma looked very grave. But Fidgety Phil, he won't sit still. He wriggles and giggles, and then, I declare, swings backwards and forwards and tilts up his chair, just like any rocking horse. Philip, I am getting cross. See the naughty restless child growing still more rude and wild, till his chair falls over quite. Philip screams with all his might, catches at the cloth, but then that makes matters worse again. Down upon the ground they fall, glasses, plates, knives, forks, and all. How Mamma did fret and frown when she saw them tumbling down, and Papa made such a face. Philip is in sad disgrace. Where is Philip? Where is he? Fairly covered up, you see. Cloth and all are lying on him. He has pulled down all upon him. What a terrible to-do! Dishes, glasses, snapped in two. Here a knife, and there a fork. Philip, this is cruel work. The table all so bare, and ah, poor Papa and poor Mamma look quite cross, and wonder how they shall have their dinner now. The story of Johnny Head in Air. As he trudged along to school, it was always Johnny's rule to be looking at the sky and the clouds that floated by. But what just before him lay in his way, Johnny never thought about, so that everyone cried out, "Look at little Johnny there, little Johnny Head in Air." Running just in Johnny's way came a little dog one day. Johnny's eyes were still astray, up on high, in the sky, and he never heard them cry, "Johnny, mind, the dog is nigh." Bump, dump, down they fell with such a thump, dog and Johnny in a lump. Once, with head as high as ever, Johnny walked beside the river. Johnny watched the swallows trying which was cleverest at flying. Oh, what fun! Johnny watched the bright round sun going in and coming out. This was all he thought about. So he strode on, only think, to the river's very brink, where the bank was high and steep, and the water very deep, and the fishes in a row stared to see him coming so. One step more, oh, sad to tell, headlong in poor Johnny fell, and the fishes in dismay wagged their tails and swam away. There lay Johnny on his face, with his nice red writing case, but as they were passing by, 2 strong men had heard him cry, and with sticks these 2 strong men hooked poor Johnny out again. Oh, you should have seen him shiver when they pulled him from the river. He was in a sorry plight, dripping wet, and such a fright, wet all over, everywhere, clothes and arms and face and hair. Johnny never will forget what it is to be so wet. And the fishes, 1, 2, 3, are come back again, you see. Up they came the moment after to enjoy the fun and laughter. Each popped out his little head, and to tease poor Johnny said, "Silly little Johnny, look, you have lost your writing book." The story of Flying Robert. When the rain comes tumbling down in the country or the town, all good little girls and boys stay at home and mind their toys. Robert thought, "No, when it pours, it is better out of doors." Rain it did, and in a minute Bob was in it. Here you see him, silly fellow, underneath his red umbrella. What a wind, oh how it whistles through the trees and flowers and thistles. It has caught his red umbrella. Now look at him, silly fellow, up he flies to the skies. No one heard his screams and cries. Through the clouds the rude wind bore him, and his hat flew on before him. Soon they got to such a height they were nearly out of sight, and the hat went up so high that it nearly touched the sky. No one ever yet could tell where they stopped or where they fell. Only this one thing is plain: Bob was never seen again. End of Struwwelpeter, Merry Tales and Funny Pictures by Heinrich Hoffmann. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, in December 2011 in San Diego, California. Johnny Crow's Garden by L. Leslie Brooke. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Johnny Crow would dig and sow till he made a little garden. And the lion had a green and yellow tie on, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the rat wore a feather in his hat, but the bear had nothing to wear, in Johnny Crow's garden. So the ape took his measure with a tape, in Johnny Crow's garden. Then the crane was caught in the rain, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the beaver was afraid he had a fever, but the goat said, "It's nothing but his throat," in Johnny Crow's garden. And the pig danced a jig, in Johnny Crow's garden. Then the stork gave a philosophic talk, till the hippopotami said, "Ask no further, what am I?" While the elephant said something quite irrelevant. And the goose, well, the goose was a goose, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the mouse built himself a little house, where the cat sat down beside the mat, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the whale told a very long tale, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the owl was a funny old fowl, and the fox put them all in the stocks, in Johnny Crow's garden. But Johnny Crow, he let them go, and they all sat down to their dinner in a row, in Johnny Crow's garden. Goodbye. End of Johnny Crow's Garden. Johnny Crow's Party by L. Leslie Brooke. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Johnny Crow plied rake and hoe and improved his little garden. And the eagle looked quite regal, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the cockatoo said, "Comment vous portez-vous?" And the gander didn't understand her. But the flamingo talked the same lingo, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the bear sang a sentimental air, but the giraffe was inclined to laugh. Even the duckling couldn't help chuckling, in Johnny Crow's garden. Then the snake got entangled with the rake, in Johnny Crow's garden. And the cock had a very nasty knock. So the hen said, "We'll never come again," to Johnny Crow's garden. And the sheep went to sleep, and the armadillo used him for a pillow. And the porcupine said, "Wake me if for talk you pine," in Johnny Crow's garden. And the kangaroo tried to paint the roses blue, till the camel swallowed the enamel. And the reindeer said, "I'm sorry for your pain, dear," in Johnny Crow's garden. So the chimpanzee put the kettle on for tea, and the seal made a very big meal, while the sole shared a muffin with the mole, in Johnny Crow's garden. Then they picked the flowers and wandered in the maze, and before they went their several ways, they all joined together in a hearty vote of praise of Johnny Crow and his garden. End of Johnny Crow's Party. Book About Animals by Rufus Merrill. Originally published in 1850. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The elephant is the biggest of all land animals. He is more than 5 times as big as an ox, but he is a harmless creature for all that. When he is wild and lives in the woods, he will run away if you attempt to go near him. When he is tame, he will take a piece of cake out of your pocket and let you ride upon his back. The orangutan is a species of the ape. It has long arms and hands, with very long fingers. It is much larger than the ape, and some have been found about 6 feet high when standing erect. It is capable of walking nearly erect, but the usual gait on the ground is like a cripple who supports himself on his hands and draws his body forward. Its home, like the monkey family, seems to be on the trees. The hair is of a brownish-red color and covers his back, arms, legs, and the outside of his hands and feet. The face has no hair except whiskers on its side. He inhabits Malacca, Cochin China, and particularly the island of Borneo. The opossum is an American animal, having a head like the fox and large eyes. The head is mostly white, and the body is covered with long black and white hairs. He climbs up trees with great facility, hides himself in the leaves to catch birds, or hangs himself by the tail from a branch. It seeks its food in the night and lives on fruit, insects, and birds' eggs. Its teeth are 50 in number. The most remarkable circumstance in the natural history of this animal is the pouch which is formed under the belly of the female, in which it carries its young ones when they are small. If the little creatures are frightened when absent from their mother, they scamper to this asylum as soon as possible. The common antelope. Of this numerous tribe of animals, there is perhaps no species so truly elegant in its appearance as this, and although it is one of the most common, yet its habits are but little known. It is very numerous in all the northern parts of Africa. In size it is rather smaller than the fallow deer. Its color is a dusky brown, mixed with red. The tail is short. The horns, which are about 16 inches long, are black, distinctly annulated almost to the top, and have 3 curves. The brachia, or sides of the lyre, were frequently made of these horns, as appears from ancient gems. The female is destitute of horns, and has a white stripe on the flanks. The rabbit is a very pretty animal, and loves to live about the house and barn, in a state of friendship with all around it. It has no defense but to run away, and so harmless and innocent is it that nobody can have the heart to do it injury. It feeds upon clover, apples, and other fruits, and will often sit for hours in some snug, covered place, quietly chewing its cud with the greatest satisfaction. There is another kind of rabbit which runs wild in the woods and fields. He is remarkably swift of foot, and no dog can overtake him in a race but a greyhound. His fur is very soft, and is used in making coarse hats. The musk deer. These animals are found in the alpine mountains of Asia and Siberia. Their favorite haunts are the tops of mountains covered with pines, where they delight to wander in places the most difficult of access. They are hunted for the sake of their well-known perfume, which is contained in an oval bag about the size of a small hen's egg, hanging from the abdomen. This receptacle is found constantly filled with a soft, unctuous, brownish substance of the most powerful and penetrating scent, and which is the perfume in its natural state. When close, and in large quantities, the smell is very powerful and injurious. The polar bear is distinguished for his tremendous ferocity. They are very numerous in the polar areas. There it is seen not only on land and fixed ice, but on floating ice several leagues out at sea. At sea the food of this animal is fish, seals, and the carcasses of whales. On land it preys upon deer and other animals, and will, like the black bear, eat many kinds of berries. In winter it beds itself deeply under the snow or eminences of ice, and awaits, in a torpid state, the return of the sun. The black bear lives in the woods of the United States, and is not as large as the polar or brown bear, but lives very much like the polar bear. End of Book About Animals. "'Twas the Night Before Christmas, A Visit from St. Nicholas, by Clement C. Moore. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when, what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh, and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now, Dasher, now, Dancer, now, Prancer and Vixen, on, Comet, on, Cupid, on, Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now, dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled! His dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face, and a little round belly that shook when he laughed, like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." End of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Read by Kara Schallenberg in December 2011 in San Diego, California. The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Once upon a time there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane together to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one shoe among the cabbages, and the other amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. He rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently Peter sneezed, "Kerchoo!" Mr. McGregor was after him in no time, and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time he began to wander about, going lippity, lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe, scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go, along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 teaspoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. End of The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, in December 2011 in San Diego, California. Androcles and the Lion, from Europa's Fairy Book by Joseph Jacobs. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. It happened in the old days at Rome that a slave named Androcles escaped from his master and fled into the forest, and he wandered there for a long time till he was weary and well nigh spent with hunger and despair. Just then he heard a lion near him, moaning and groaning, and at times roaring terribly. Tired as he was, Androcles rose up and rushed away, as he thought, from the lion, but as he made his way through the bushes he stumbled over the root of a tree and fell down lamed, and when he tried to get up, there he saw the lion coming towards him, limping on 3 feet and holding his forepaw in front of him. Poor Androcles was in despair. He had not strength to rise and run away, and there was the lion coming upon him. But when the great beast came up to him, instead of attacking him, it kept on moaning and groaning and looking at Androcles, who saw that the lion was holding out his right paw, which was covered with blood and much swollen. Looking more closely at it, Androcles saw a great big thorn pressed into the paw, which was the cause of all the lion's trouble. Plucking up courage, he seized hold of the thorn and drew it out of the lion's paw, who roared with pain when the thorn came out, but soon after found such relief from it that he fawned upon Androcles and showed in every way that he knew to whom he owed the relief. Instead of eating him up, he brought him a young deer that he had slain, and Androcles managed to make a meal from it. For some time the lion continued to bring the game he had killed to Androcles, who became quite fond of the huge beast. But one day a number of soldiers came marching through the forest and found Androcles, and as he could not explain what he was doing, they took him prisoner and brought him back to the town from which he had fled. Here his master soon found him and brought him before the authorities, and he was condemned to death because he had fled from his master. Now, it used to be the custom to throw murderers and other criminals to the lions in a huge circus, so that while the criminals were punished, the public could enjoy the spectacle of a combat between them and the wild beasts. So Androcles was condemned to be thrown to the lions, and on the appointed day he was led forth into the arena and left there alone with only a spear to protect him from the lion. The emperor was in the royal box that day, and gave the signal for the lion to come out and attack Androcles. But when it came out of its cage and got near Androcles, what do you think it did? Instead of jumping upon him, it fawned upon him and stroked him with its paw, and made no attempt to do him any harm. It was, of course, the lion which Androcles had met in the forest. The emperor, surprised at seeing such a strange behavior in so cruel a beast, summoned Androcles to him, and asked how it happened that this particular lion had lost all its cruelty of disposition. So Androcles told the emperor all that had happened to him, and how the lion was showing its gratitude for having relieved it of the thorn. Thereupon the emperor pardoned Androcles and ordered his master to set him free, while the lion was taken back into the forest and let loose to enjoy liberty once more. The end. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, in December 2011 in San Diego, California. The Master Cat, or Puss in Boots, by Charles Perrault. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. There was a miller who left no more estate to the 3 sons he had than his mill, his ass, and his cat. The partition was soon made. Neither the scrivener nor attorney were sent for. They would soon have eaten up all the poor patrimony. The eldest had the mill, the second the ass, and the youngest nothing but the cat. The poor young fellow was quite comfortless at having so poor a lot. "My brothers," said he, "may get their living handsomely enough by joining their stocks together, but for my part, when I have eaten up my cat and made me a muff of his skin, I must die with hunger." The cat, who heard all this, but made as if he did not, said to him with a grave and serious air, "Do not thus afflict yourself, my good master. You have only to give me a bag, and get a pair of boots made for me, that I may scamper through the dirt and the brambles, and you shall see that you have not so bad a portion of me as you imagine." Though the cat's master did not build very much upon what he said, he had, however, often seen him play a great many cunning tricks to catch rats and mice, as when he used to hang by the heels, or hide himself in the meal and make as if he were dead, so that he did not altogether despair of his affording him some help in his miserable condition. When the cat had what he asked for, he booted himself very gallantly, and, putting his bag about his neck, he held the strings of it in his 2 forepaws, and went into a warren where there was great abundance of rabbits. He put bran and sow thistle into his bag, and stretching himself out at length as if he had been dead, he waited for some young rabbit, not yet acquainted with the deceits of the world, to come and rummage his bag for what he had put into it. Scarce was he lain down, but he had what he wanted. A rash and foolish young rabbit jumped into his bag, and Monsieur Puss, immediately drawing close the strings, took and killed him without pity. Proud of his prey, he went with it to the palace, and asked to speak with his Majesty. He was showed upstairs into the king's apartment, and, making a low reverence, said to him, "I have brought you, sir, a rabbit of the warren which my noble lord the Marquis of Carabas," for that was the title which Puss was pleased to give his master, "has commanded me to present to your Majesty from him." "Tell thy master," said the king, "that I thank him, and that he does me a great deal of pleasure." Another time he went and hid himself among some standing corn, holding still his bag open, and when a brace of partridges ran into it, he drew the strings, and so caught them both. He went and made a present of these to the king, as he had done before of the rabbit which he took in the warren. The king in like manner received the partridges with great pleasure, and ordered him some money to drink. The cat continued for 2 or 3 months, thus to carry his Majesty, from time to time, game of his master's taking. One day in particular, when he knew for certain that the king was to take the air along the riverside with his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world, he said to his master, "If you will follow my advice, your fortune is made. You have nothing else to do but go and wash yourself in the river. In that part I shall show you, and leave the rest to me." The Marquis of Carabas did what the cat advised him to, without knowing why or wherefore. While he was washing, the king passed by, and the cat began to cry out as loud as he could, "Help, help! My lord Marquis of Carabas is drowning!" At this noise the king put his head out of his coach window, and finding it was the cat, who had so often brought him such good game, he commanded his guards to run immediately to the assistance of his lordship, the Marquis of Carabas. While they were drawing the poor Marquis out of the river, the cat came up to the coach and told the king that while his master was washing, there came by some rogues, who went off with his clothes, though he had cried out, "Thieves, thieves!" several times as loud as he could. This cunning cat had hidden them under a great stone. The king immediately commanded the officers of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the lord Marquis of Carabas. The king received him with great kindness, and as the fine clothes he had given him extremely set off his good mien, for he was well made and very handsome in his person, the king's daughter took a secret inclination to him, and the Marquis of Carabas had no sooner cast 2 or 3 respectful and somewhat tender glances, but she fell in love with him to distraction. The king would needs have him come into his coach and take part of the airing. The cat, quite overjoyed to see his project begin to succeed, marched on before, and meeting with some countrymen who were mowing a meadow, he said to them, "Good people, you who are mowing, if you do not tell the king that the meadow you mow belongs to my lord Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as mincemeat." The king did not fail asking of the mowers to whom the meadow they were mowing belonged. "To my lord Marquis of Carabas," answered they all together, for the cat's threats had made them terribly afraid. "Truly a fine estate," said the king to the Marquis of Carabas. "You see, sir," said the Marquis, "this is a meadow which never fails to yield a plentiful harvest every year." The Master Cat, who still went on before, met with some reapers, and said to them, "Good people, you who are reaping, if you do not tell the king that all this corn belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as mincemeat." The king, who passed by a moment after, would needs know to whom all that corn, which he then saw, did belong. "To my lord Marquis of Carabas," replied the reapers, and the king again congratulated the Marquis. The Master Cat, who went always before, said the same words to all he met, and the king was astonished at the vast estates of my lord Marquis of Carabas. Monsieur Puss came at last to a stately castle, the master of which was an ogre, the richest had ever been known, for all the lands which the king had then gone over belonged to this castle. The cat, who had taken care to inform himself who this ogre was, and what he could do, asked to speak with him, saying he could not pass so near his castle without having the honour of paying his respects to him. The ogre received him as civilly as an ogre could do, and made him sit down. "I have been assured," said the cat, "that you have the gift of being able to change yourself into all sorts of creatures you have a mind to. You can, for example, transform yourself into a lion or elephant, and the like." "This is true," answered the ogre very briskly, "and, to convince you, you shall see me now become a lion." Puss was so sadly terrified at the sight of a lion so near him that he immediately got into the gutter, not without abundance of trouble and danger because of his boots, which were ill-suited for walking upon the tiles. A little while after, when Puss saw that the ogre had resumed his natural form, he came down, and owned he had been very much frightened. "I have been moreover informed," said the cat, "but I know not how to believe it, that you have also the power to take on you the shape of the smallest animals, for example, to change yourself into a rat or a mouse, but I must own to you I take this to be impossible." "Impossible!" cried the ogre, "you shall see that presently," and at the same time changed into a mouse, and began to run about the floor. Puss no sooner perceived this, but he fell upon him, and ate him up. Meanwhile the king, who saw as he passed this fine castle of the ogre's, had a mind to go into it. Puss, who heard the noise of his Majesty's coach running over the drawbridge, ran out and said to the king, "Your Majesty is welcome to this castle of my lord Marquis of Carabas." "What, my lord Marquis?" cried the king, "and does this castle also belong to you? There can be nothing finer than this court, and all the stately buildings which surround it. Let us go into it, if you please." The Marquis gave his hand to the princess, and followed the king, who went up first. They passed into a spacious hall, where they found a magnificent collation which the ogre had prepared for his friends, who were that very day to visit him, but dared not to enter, knowing the king was there. His Majesty was perfectly charmed with the good qualities of my lord Marquis of Carabas, as was his daughter, who had fallen violently in love with him, and seeing the vast estate he possessed, said to him, after having drank 5 or 6 glasses, "It will be owing to yourself only, my lord Marquis, if you are not my son-in-law." The Marquis, making several low bows, accepted the honour which his Majesty conferred upon him, and forthwith, that very same day, married the princess. Puss became a great lord, and never ran after mice any more, but only for his diversion. The Moral: How advantageous it may be, by long descent of pedigree, to enjoy a great estate. Yet knowledge how to act, we see, joined with consummate industry, no wonder ye thereat, doth often prove a greater boon, as should be to young people known. Another: If the son of a miller so soon gains the heart of a beautiful princess, and makes her impart sweet languishing glances, eyes melting for love, it must be remarked of fine clothes how they move, and that youth, a good face, a good air, with good mien, are not always indifferent mediums to win the love of the fair and gently inspire the flames of sweet passion and tender desire. End of The Master Cat, or Puss in Boots, read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, in December 2011 in San Diego, California. The Little Red Hen by Florence White Williams. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Little Red Hen lived in a barnyard. She spent almost all of her time walking about the barnyard in her pickety-peckety fashion, scratching everywhere for worms. She dearly loved fat, delicious worms, and felt they were absolutely necessary to the health of her children. As often as she found a worm, she would call, "Chuck, chuck, chuck," to her chickies. When they were gathered about her, she would distribute choice morsels of her tidbit. A busy little body was she. A cat usually napped lazily in the barn door, not even bothering himself to scare the rat, who ran here and there as he pleased. And as for the pig who lived in the sty, he did not care what happened, so long as he could eat and grow fat. One day the Little Red Hen found a seed. It was a wheat seed, but the Little Red Hen was so accustomed to bugs and worms that she supposed this to be some new and perhaps very delicious kind of meat. She bit it gently and found that it resembled a worm in no way whatsoever as to taste, although because it was long and slender, a Little Red Hen might easily be fooled by its appearance. Carrying it about, she made many inquiries as to what it might be. She found it was a wheat seed, and that, if planted, it would grow up, and when ripe, it could be made into flour and then into bread. When she discovered that, she knew it ought to be planted. She was so busy hunting food for herself and her family that, naturally, she thought she ought not to take time to plant it. So she thought of the pig, upon whom time must hang heavily, and of the cat, who had nothing to do, and of the great fat rat with his idle hours, and she called loudly, "Who will plant the seed?" But the pig said, "Not I," and the cat said, "Not I," and the rat said, "Not I." "Well then," said the Little Red Hen, "I will." And she did. Then she went on with her daily duties through the long summer days, scratching for worms and feeding her chicks, while the pig grew fat, and the cat grew fat, and the rat grew fat, and the wheat grew tall and ready for harvest. So one day the Little Red Hen chanced to notice how large the wheat was, and that the grain was ripe, so she ran about calling briskly, "Who will cut the wheat?" The pig said, "Not I." The cat said, "Not I," and the rat said, "Not I." "Well then," said the Little Red Hen, "I will." And she did. She got the sickle from among the farmer's tools in the barn and proceeded to cut off all of the big plant of wheat. On the ground lay the nicely cut wheat, ready to be gathered and threshed, but the newest and yellowest and downiest of Mrs. Hen's chicks set up a peep-peep-peeping in their most vigorous fashion, proclaiming to the world at large, but most particularly to their mother, that she was neglecting them. Poor Little Red Hen! She felt quite bewildered and hardly knew where to turn. Her attention was sorely divided between her duty to her children and her duty to the wheat, for which she felt responsible. So again, in a very hopeful tone, she called out, "Who will thresh the wheat?" But the pig, with a grunt, said, "Not I," and the cat, with a meow, said, "Not I," and the rat, with a squeak, said, "Not I." So the Little Red Hen, looking, it must be admitted, rather discouraged, said, "Well, I will, then." And she did. Of course, she had to feed her babies first, though, and when she had gotten them all to sleep for their afternoon nap, she went out and threshed the wheat. Then she called out, "Who will carry the wheat to the mill to be ground?" Turning their backs with snippy glee, the pig said, "Not I," and the cat said, "Not I," and that rat said, "Not I." So the good Little Red Hen could do nothing but say, "I will, then," and she did. Carrying the sack of wheat, she trudged off to the distant mill. There she ordered the wheat ground into beautiful white flour. When the miller brought her the flour, she walked slowly back all the way to her own barnyard in her own pickety-peckety fashion. She even managed, in spite of her load, to catch a nice juicy worm now and then, and had one left for the babies when she reached them. Those cunning little fluff balls were so glad to see their mother. For the first time, they really appreciated her. After this really strenuous day, Mrs. Hen retired to her slumbers earlier than usual. Indeed, before the colors came into the sky to herald the setting of the sun, her usual bedtime hour. She would have liked to sleep late in the morning, but her chicks, joining in the morning chorus of the henyard, drove away all hopes of such a luxury. Even as she sleepily half-opened one eye, the thought came to her that today the wheat must, somehow, be made into bread. She was not in the habit of making bread, although of course anyone can make it if he or she follows the recipe with care, and she knew perfectly well that she could do it if necessary. So after her children were fed and made sweet and fresh for the day, she hunted up the pig, the cat, and the rat. Still confident that they would surely help her some day, she sang out, "Who will make the bread?" Alas for the little red hen! Once more her hopes were dashed, for the pig said, "Not I," the cat said, "Not I," and the rat said, "Not I." So the little red hen said once more, "I will, then," and she did. Feeling that she might have known all the time that she would have to do it all herself, she went and put on a fresh apron and spotless cook's cap. First of all she set the dough, as was proper. When it was time, she brought out the molding board and the baking tins, molded the bread, divided it into loaves, and put them into the oven to bake. All the while the cat sat lazily by, giggling and chuckling. And close at hand, the vain rat powdered his nose and admired himself in a mirror. In the distance could be heard the long-drawn snores of the dozing pig. At last the great moment arrived. A delicious odor was wafted upon the autumn breeze. Everywhere the barnyard citizens sniffed the air with delight. The red hen ambled in her pickety-peckety way toward the source of all this excitement. Although she appeared to be perfectly calm, in reality she could only with difficulty restrain an impulse to dance and sing, for had she not done all the work on this wonderful bread? Small wonder that she was the most excited person in the barnyard. She did not know whether the bread would be fit to eat, but, joy of joys, when the lovely brown loaves came out of the oven, they were done to perfection. Then, probably because she had acquired the habit, the red hen called, "Who will eat the bread?" All the animals in the barnyard were watching hungrily and smacking their lips in anticipation, and the pig said, "I will." The cat said, "I will." The rat said, "I will." But the little red hen said, "No, you won't. I will." And she did. End of The Little Red Hen, read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on January 5th, 2012, in San Diego, California. The Velveteen Rabbit, or How Toys Become Real, by Marjorie Williams. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. There was once a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning he was really splendid. He was fat and bunchy, as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown and white. He had real thread whiskers, and his ears were lined with pink sateen. On Christmas morning, when he sat wedged in the top of the boy's stocking, with a sprig of holly between his paws, the effect was charming. There were other things in the stocking, nuts and oranges and a toy engine, and chocolate almonds and a clockwork mouse, but the rabbit was quite the best of all. For at least 2 hours the boy loved him, and then aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was a great rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels, and in the excitement of looking at all the new presents, the Velveteen Rabbit was forgotten. For a long time he lived in the toy cupboard or on the nursery floor, and no one thought very much about him. He was naturally shy, and being only made of velveteen, some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him. The mechanical toys were very superior, and looked down upon everyone else. They were full of modern ideas, and pretended they were real. The model boat, who had lived through 2 seasons and lost most of his paint, caught the tone from them, and never missed an opportunity of referring to his rigging in technical terms. The rabbit could not claim to be a model of anything, for he didn't know that real rabbits existed. He thought they were all stuffed with sawdust like himself, and he understood that sawdust was quite out of date, and should never be mentioned in modern circles. Even Timothy, the jointed wooden lion, who was made by the disabled soldiers, and should have had broader views, put on airs, and pretended he was connected with government. Between them all, the poor little rabbit was made to feel himself very insignificant and commonplace, and the only person who was kind to him at all was the Skin Horse. The Skin Horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He was so old that his brown coat was bald in patches, and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by break their mainsprings and pass away, and he knew that they were only toys, and would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced, like the Skin Horse, understand all about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day, when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender, before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you, and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the Skin Horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the Skin Horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." "I suppose you are real?" said the rabbit. And then he wished he had not said it, for he thought the Skin Horse might be sensitive, but the Skin Horse only smiled. "The boy's uncle made me real," he said. "That was a great many years ago, but once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always." The rabbit sighed. He thought it would be a long time before this magic called real happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like, and yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers was rather sad. He wished that he could become it without these uncomfortable things happening to him. There was a person called Nana who ruled the nursery. Sometimes she took no notice of the playthings lying about, and sometimes, for no reason whatever, she went swooping about like a great wind and hustled them away in cupboards. She called this tidying up, and the playthings all hated it, especially the tin ones. The rabbit didn't mind it so much, for wherever he was thrown, he came down soft. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he couldn't find the china dog that always slept with him. Nana was in a hurry, and it was too much trouble to hunt for china dogs at bedtime, so she simply looked about her, and seeing that the toy cupboard door stood open, she made a swoop. "Here," she said, "take your old bunny, he'll do to sleep with you." And she dragged the rabbit out by one ear and put him into the boy's arms. That night, and for many nights after, the Velveteen Rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him very tight, and sometimes he rolled over on him, and sometimes he pushed him so far under the pillow that the rabbit could scarcely breathe. And he missed, too, those long moonlight hours in the nursery, when all the house was silent, and his talks with the Skin Horse. But very soon he grew to like it, for the boy used to talk to him, and made nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes, that he said were like the burrows the real rabbits lived in. And they had splendid games together, in whispers, when Nana had gone away to her supper and left the night-light burning on the mantelpiece. And when the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close under his little warm chin and dream, with the boy's hands clasped close round him all night long. And so time went on, and the little rabbit was very happy, so happy that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier and shabbier, and his tail becoming unsewn, and all the pink rubbed off his nose where the boy had kissed him. Spring came, and they had long days in the garden, for wherever the boy went, the rabbit went too. He had rides in the wheelbarrow, and picnics on the grass, and lovely fairy huts built for him under the raspberry canes, behind the flower border. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to go out to tea, the rabbit was left out there on the lawn until long after dusk, and Nana had to come and look for him with the candle, because the boy couldn't go to sleep unless he was there. He was wet through with the dew, and quite earthy from diving into the burrows the boy had made for him in the flower bed, and Nana grumbled as she rubbed him off with the corner of her apron. "You must have your old Bunny," she said. "Fancy all that fuss for a toy." The boy sat up in bed and stretched out his hands. "Give me my Bunny," he said. "You mustn't say that. He isn't a toy. He's real." When the little rabbit heard that, he was happy, for he knew what the Skin Horse had said was true at last. The nursery magic had happened to him, and he was a toy no longer. He was real. The boy himself had said it. That night he was almost too happy to sleep, and so much love stirred in his little sawdust heart that it almost burst. And into his boot-button eyes, that had long ago lost their polish, there came a look of wisdom and beauty, so that even Nana noticed it next morning when she picked him up and said, "I declare if that old Bunny hasn't got quite a knowing expression." That was a wonderful summer. Near the house where they lived there was a wood, and in the long June evenings the boy liked to go there after tea to play. He took the Velveteen Rabbit with him, and before he wandered off to pick flowers or play at brigands among the trees, he always made the rabbit a little nest somewhere among the bracken, where he would be quite cozy, for he was a kind-hearted little boy, and he liked Bunny to be comfortable. One evening, while the rabbit was lying there alone, watching the ants that ran to and fro between his velvet paws in the grass, he saw two strange beings creep out of the tall bracken near him. They were rabbits like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been very well made, for their seams didn't show at all, and they changed shape in a queer way when they moved. One minute they were long and thin, and the next minute fat and bunchy, instead of always staying the same like he did. Their feet padded softly on the ground, and they crept quite close to him, twitching their noses, while the rabbit stared hard to see which side the clockwork stuck out, for he knew that people who jump generally have something to wind them up. But he couldn't see it. They were evidently a new kind of rabbit altogether. They stared at him, and the little rabbit stared back, and all the time their noses twitched. "Why don't you get up and play with us?" one of them asked. "I don't feel like it," said the rabbit, for he didn't want to explain that he had no clockwork. "Ho!" said the furry rabbit. "It's as easy as anything," and he gave a big hop sideways and stood on his hind legs. "I don't believe you can," he said. "I can," said the little rabbit. "I can jump higher than anything." He meant when the boy threw him, but of course he didn't want to say so. "Can you hop on your hind legs?" asked the furry rabbit. That was a dreadful question, for the Velveteen Rabbit had no hind legs at all. The back of him was made all in one piece, like a pincushion. He sat still in the bracken, and hoped that the other rabbits wouldn't notice. "I don't want to," he said again. But the wild rabbits have very sharp eyes, and this one stretched out his neck and looked. "He hasn't got any hind legs," he called out. "Fancy a rabbit without any hind legs!" And he began to laugh. "I have!" cried the little rabbit. "I have got hind legs. I am sitting on them." "Then stretch them out and show me like this," said the wild rabbit, and he began to whirl around and dance, till the little rabbit got quite dizzy. "I don't like dancing," he said. "I'd rather sit still." But all the while he was longing to dance, for a funny new tickly feeling ran through him, and he felt he would give anything in the world to be able to jump about like these rabbits did. The strange rabbit stopped dancing and came quite close. He came so close this time that his long whiskers brushed the Velveteen Rabbit's ear, and then he wrinkled his nose suddenly and flattened his ears and jumped backwards. "He doesn't smell right," he exclaimed. "He isn't a real rabbit at all. He isn't real." "I am real," said the little rabbit. "I am real. The boy said so." And he nearly began to cry. Just then there was a sound of footsteps, and the boy ran past near them, and with a stamp of feet and a flash of white tails, the two strange rabbits disappeared. "Come back and play with me," called the little rabbit. "Oh, do come back. I know I am real." But there was no answer. Only the little ants ran to and fro, and the bracken swayed gently where the two strangers had passed. The Velveteen Rabbit was all alone. "Oh dear," he thought, "why did they run away like that? Why couldn't they stop and talk to me?" For a long time he lay very still, watching the bracken and hoping that they would come back, but they never returned, and presently the sun sank lower, and the little white moths fluttered out, and the boy came and carried him home. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby, but the boy loved him just as much. He loved him so hard that he loved all his whiskers off, and the pink lining to his ears turned gray, and his brown spots faded. He even began to lose his shape, and he scarcely looked like a rabbit any more, except to the boy. To him he was always beautiful, and that was all that the little rabbit cared about. He didn't mind how he looked to other people, because the nursery magic had made him real, and when you are real, shabbiness doesn't matter. And then one day the boy was ill. His face grew very flushed, and he talked in his sleep, and his little body was so hot that it burned the rabbit when he held him close. Strange people came and went in the nursery, and a light burned all night, and through it all the little Velveteen Rabbit lay there, hidden from sight under the bedclothes, and he never stirred, for he was afraid that if they found him someone might take him away, and he knew that the boy needed him. It was a long, weary time, for the boy was too ill to play, and the little rabbit found it rather dull with nothing to do all day long. But he snuggled down patiently, and looked forward to the time when the boy should be well again, and they would go out in the garden amongst the flowers and the butterflies, and play splendid games in the raspberry thicket like they used to. All sorts of delightful things he planned, and while the boy lay half asleep, he crept up close to the pillow and whispered them in his ear. And presently the fever turned, and the boy got better. He was able to sit up in bed and look at picture books, while the little rabbit cuddled close at his side. And one day they let him get up and dress. It was a bright, sunny morning, and the windows stood wide open. They had carried the boy out onto the balcony, wrapped in a shawl, and the little rabbit lay tangled up among the bedclothes, thinking. The boy was going to the seaside tomorrow. Everything was arranged, and now it only remained to carry out the doctor's orders. They talked about it all, while the little rabbit lay under the bedclothes, with just his head peeping out, and listened. The room was to be disinfected, and all the books and toys that the boy had played with in bed must be burnt. "Hurrah!" thought the little rabbit. "Tomorrow we shall go to the seaside." For the boy had often talked of the seaside, and he wanted very much to see the big waves coming in, and the tiny crabs, and the sand castles. Just then Nana caught sight of him. "How about his old bunny?" she asked. "That?" said the doctor. "Why, it's a mass of scarlet fever germs. Burn it at once." "What? Nonsense! Get him a new one. He mustn't have that any more." And so the little rabbit was put into a sack with the old picture books and a lot of rubbish, and carried out to the end of the garden behind the fowl house. That was a fine place to make a bonfire, only the gardener was too busy just then to attend to it. He had the potatoes to dig and the green peas to gather, but next morning he promised to come quite early and burn the whole lot. That night the boy slept in a different bedroom, and he had a new bunny to sleep with him. It was a splendid bunny, all white plush with real glass eyes, but the boy was too excited to care very much about it, for tomorrow he was going to the seaside, and that in itself was such a wonderful thing that he could think of nothing else. And while the boy was asleep, dreaming of the seaside, the little rabbit lay among the old picture books in the corner behind the fowl house, and he felt very lonely. The sack had been left untied, and so by wriggling a bit he was able to get his head through the opening and look out. He was shivering a little, for he had always been used to sleeping in a proper bed, and by this time his coat had worn so thin and threadbare from hugging that it was no longer any protection to him. Nearby he could see a thicket of raspberry canes, growing tall and close like a tropical jungle, in whose shadow he had played with the boy on bygone mornings. He thought of those long sunlit hours in the garden, how happy they were, and a great sadness came over him. He seemed to see them all pass before him, each more beautiful than the other, the fairy huts in the flower bed, the quiet evenings in the wood when he lay in the bracken and the little ants ran over his paws, the wonderful day when he first knew that he was real. He thought of the skin horse, so wise and gentle, and all that he had told him. Of what use was it to be loved and lose one's beauty and become real if it all ended like this? And a tear, a real tear, trickled down his little shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. And then a strange thing happened, for where the tear had fallen a flower grew out of the ground, a mysterious flower, not at all like any that grew in the garden. It had slender green leaves the color of emeralds, and in the center of the leaves a blossom like a golden cup. It was so beautiful that the little rabbit forgot to cry and just lay there watching it, and presently the blossom opened, and out of it there stepped a fairy. She was quite the loveliest fairy in the whole world. Her dress was of pearl and dewdrops, and there were flowers round her neck and in her hair, and her face was like the most perfect flower of all. And she came close to the little rabbit, and gathered him up in her arms, and kissed him on his velveteen nose, that was all damp from crying. "Little rabbit," she said, "don't you know who I am?" The rabbit looked up at her, and it seemed to him that he had seen her face before, but he couldn't think where. "I am the nursery magic fairy," she said. "I take care of all the playthings that the children have loved. When they are old and worn out and the children don't need them any more, then I come and take them away with me and turn them into real." "Wasn't I real before?" asked the little rabbit. "You were real to the boy," the fairy said, "because he loved you. Now you shall be real to everyone." And she held the little rabbit close in her arms and flew with him into the wood. It was light now, for the moon had risen. All the forest was beautiful, and the fronds of the bracken shone like frosted silver. In the open glade between the tree trunks the wild rabbits danced with their shadows on the velvet grass, but when they saw the fairy they all stopped dancing and stood round in a ring to stare at her. "I've brought you a new playfellow," the fairy said. "You must be very kind to him and teach him all he needs to know in Rabbitland, for he is going to live with you forever and ever." And she kissed the little rabbit again and put him down on the grass. "Run and play, little rabbit," she said. But the little rabbit sat quite still for a moment and never moved, for when he saw all the wild rabbits dancing around him, he suddenly remembered about his hind legs, and he didn't want them to see that he was made all in one piece. He did not know that when the fairy kissed him that last time she had changed him altogether, and he might have sat there a long time, too shy to move, if just then something hadn't tickled his nose, and before he thought what he was doing, he lifted his hind toe to scratch it. And he found that he actually had hind legs. Instead of dingy velveteen, he had brown fur, soft and shiny. His ears twitched by themselves, and his whiskers were so long that they brushed the grass. He gave one leap, and the joy of using those hind legs was so great that he went springing about the turf on them, jumping sideways and whirling round as the others did. And he grew so excited that when at last he did stop to look for the fairy, she had gone. He was a real rabbit at last, at home with the other rabbits. Autumn passed, and winter, and in the spring, when the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the woods behind the house. And while he was playing, 2 rabbits crept out from the bracken and peeped at him. One of them was brown all over, but the other had strange markings under his fur, as though long ago he had been spotted, and the spots still showed through. And about his little soft nose and his round black eyes there was something familiar, so that the boy thought to himself, "Why, he looks just like my old bunny that was lost when I had scarlet fever." But he never knew that it really was his own bunny, come back to look at the child who had first helped him to be real. End of The Velveteen Rabbit, read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on January 6th, 2012, in San Diego, California. The Slant Book, by Peter Newell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The uphill work is slow indeed, but down the slant, ah, note the speed. The original book is printed and bound so that alternating pages, and the text on those pages, are at a 15-degree incline or decline. Where Bobby lives there is a hill so steep and high, 'twould fill the bill for Jack and Jill their famous act to try. Once Bobby's go-cart broke away, and down this hill it kited. The careless nurse screamed in dismay, but Bobby was delighted. He clapped his hands in manner rude, and laughed in high elation, while close behind the nurse pursued in hopeless consternation. An officer slid off the lid as Bobby hove in sight, and bellowed out, "You're scorchin', kid, I'll run you in all right." But down the go-cart swiftly sped, and smashed that cop completely, and as he sailed o'er Bobby's head, Bob snipped a button neatly. A funny son of sunny Greece was standing near the curb, beside his pushcart, wrapped in peace that naught could well disturb. But all at once he got a shock. The go-cart speeding down collided with his fancy stock, and littered up the town. The runaway then swerved a bit, and snapped a hydrant short, which accident proved quite a hit of rather novel sort. The water spouted in a jet as much as 10 feet high, and all were soaked and nearly choked who chanced to be nearby. A farmer's wife, Miss Angie Moore, was trudging up the grade. A basket full of eggs she bore, to barter with in trade. The go-cart and the lady met, informally no doubt, and made a sort of omelette, and spread it round about. A painter on a ladder perched was working at his calling. Against its foot the go-cart lurched, and sent the fellow sprawling. His pot of paint came tumbling down, and wrong side up it settled about a chappie's flaxen crown. Oh my, but he was nettled. A German band across the street its way was slowly wending, which was a movement indiscreet, the way that things were tending. The go-cart struck the bass drum square, and passed completely through it. The drummer madly tore his hair, and said, "Why did you do it?" Some working men were putting in a heavy plate-glass front. The go-cart then came rushing in, and did its little stunt. It smashed to bits a crystal pane 2 sweating men were bearing, and sped on down the slanting plane, and left them mad and swearing. An automobile, big and brown, was chugging up the hill, and met the go-cart plunging down with speed that boded ill. At once there rose a noise and din of people in dismay. A sandwich man then butted in, and opened up a way. A lad was rushing with a hat some lady had been buying. The go-cart caught and laid him flat, and sent the hat box flying. The hat fell out, and settled down upon our Bobby's head. "Say, I'm the swellest kid in town," the precious rascal said. A newsboy next was somehow hit. The go-cart, swift and dexterous, contrived to muss him up a bit, and fill the air with extras. One copy Bobby neatly scooped, and saw this wild display, in type so bold it fairly whooped, "A go-cart breaks away!" Then, as the go-cart speeded by, a bulldog, quite pugnacious, seized on the handle of the fly, and clung with grip tenacious. The go-kart's speed was so increased, the dog streamed out behind it, and Bobby turned to pet the beast, which didn't seem to mind it. Perambulating down the street was Miss Lucille O'Grady. The go-cart knocked her off her feet, and took on board the lady. "Your fare," said Bobby with a shout, one chubby hand extending. But Miss O'Grady tumbled out, with shrieks the heavens rending. A herder up the weary grade a yearling calf was leading. The creature was a stubborn jade, and lunged about unheeding. The go-cart caught the rope midway between the calf and herder, and both fell in behind the shay, with cries of "Bah!" and "Murder!" 2 chappies at a tennis meet were battling fast and hard. The go-cart skidded off the street, and shot across the yard. The game was 40 all, but then it didn't end that day. The go-cart dashed into the net, and carried it away. On came the go-cart down the grade, the town was now behind it, and ran into an orchard's shade, where Providence resigned it. But then it only grazed a tree, and set it all a-shiver. The ripened fruit fell merrily, and likewise Sammy Sliver. Then through a watermelon patch this awful cart descended, and split the melons by the batch. The farmer was offended, and tried to stop its wild career, which was a silly notion. It passed him promptly to the rear with quite a rapid motion. A picnic party on the green were seated at their lunch. The go-cart dashed upon the scene and through the happy bunch. Sardines and pickles, ham and cake were jumbled in a mess. Then straightway rose these picnickers and shouted for redress. An artist sketching on the slope a lively air was humming, and so absorbed was he failed to note the go-cart coming. A crash! The circumambient air was filled with miscellany, and damaged quite beyond repair was Kremnitz's white mulvaney. A damsel milked a brindled cow out in a pasture green. The birdies sang from bush and bough, all nature was serene, when suddenly a thunderbolt dispelled the sweet illusion. The go-cart gave the twain a jolt, and all was in confusion. Upon a rustic bridge a chap cast out a bait inviting, and presently he took a nap, and dreamed the fish were biting. Then came the go-cart like a gale, and rudely him awakened. At first he thought he'd caught a whale, but found he was mistaken. The longest night must have an end as well as a beginning, and so this cart, you may depend, was bound to cease its spinning. It crashed into a hemlock stump that chanced to block its way, and Bobby made a flying jump and landed in the hay. End of The Slant Book, read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, in January 2012 in San Diego, California. The Rocket Book by Peter Newell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Basement. When Fritz, the janitor's bad kid, went snooping in the basement, he found a rocket snugly hid beneath the window casement. He struck a match with one fell swoop, then, on the concrete kneeling, he lit the rocket and, shoop, it shot up through the ceiling. First flat. The Steiners on the floor above of breakfast were partaking. Crash came the rocket unannounced, and set them all a-quaking. It smote a catsup bottle fair, and bang, the thing exploded. And now these people all declare the catsup flask was loaded. Second flat. Before the fire old Grandpa Hop dozed in his armchair big, when from a trunk the rocket burst and carried off his wig. It passed so near his ancient head he roused up with a start, and, turning to his grandsons, said, "You fellows think you're smart." Third flat. Algernon Brackett, somewhat rash, had blown a monster bubble, when, oh, there came a blinding flash, precipitating trouble. But Algy turned in mild disgust, and called to Mama Brackett, "Say, did you hear that bubble bust? It made an awful racket." Fourth flat. Joe Budd, who'd bought a potted plant, was dousing it with water. He fancied this would make it grow, and Joseph loved to potter. Then through the pot the rocket shot, and made the scene look sickly. "Well now," said Joe, "I never thought that plant would shoot so quickly." Fifth flat. Right here 'tis needful to remark that Dick and little son were playing with a Noah's Ark and having loads of fun, when all at once that rocket stout up through the ark came blazing. The animals were tossed about, and did some stunts amazing. Sixth flat. A burglar on the next floor up the sideboard was exploring. The family with the brindled pup were still asleep and snoring. Just then up through the silverware the rocket thundered flaring. The burglar got a dreadful scare, then out the door went tearing. Seventh flat. Miss Mamie Briggs, with no mean skill, was playing Casey's Fling to please her cousin, Amos Gill, who liked that sort of thing. When suddenly the rocket hot the old piano jumbled. It stopped that ragtime like a shot, then through the ceiling rumbled. Eighth flat. Up through the next floor on its way that rocket dread went tearing, where Winkle stood in bathrobe gay, a tepid bath preparing. The tub it punctured like a shot, and made a mighty splashing. The man was rooted to the spot, then out the door went dashing. Ninth flat. Bob Brooks was puffing very hard his football to inflate, while round him stood his faithful guard, and they could hardly wait. Then came the rocket fierce and bright, and through the football rumbled. "You've got a pair of lungs, all right," his staring playmates grumbled. 10th flat. The family dog with frenzied mien was chasing Fluff the mouser, when poof, the rocket flashed between, and quite astonished Towser. Now if this dog had wit enough the English tongue to torture, he might have growled such silly stuff as, "Whew, that cat's a scorcher." 11th flat. While Carrie Cook sat with a book, the phonograph played sweetly. Then came the rocket, and it smashed that instrument completely. Fair Carrie promptly turned her head, attracted by the roar. "Dear me, I never heard," she said, "that record played before." 12th flat. De Vere was searching for a match to light a cigarette, but failed to find one with dispatch, which threw him in a pet. Just then the rocket flared up bright before his face and crackled, supplying him the needed light. "Thanks awfully," he cackled. 13th flat. Home from the shop came Maud's new hat, a hat of monstrous size. It almost filled the tiny flat before her ravished eyes. When shoo, up through the box so proud the rocket flared and spluttered. "I said that hat was all too loud," her peevish husband muttered. 14th flat. Tom's pap had helped him start his train, and all would have been fine had not the rocket, raising Cain, blocked traffic on the line. It blew the engine into scrap, as in a fit of passion. "Who would have thought that toy," said Pap, "would blow up in such fashion?" 15th flat. Orlando Pease, quite at his ease, the Morning Star was reading. "My dear," said he to Mrs. Pease, "here's a report worth heeding." The rocket then in wanton sport flashed through the printed pages. The lady gasped, "A wild report!" then swooned by easy stages. 16th flat. Doc Danby was a stupid guy, so lest he sleep too late, he placed a tattoo clock nearby to waken him at 8. But the rocket smote that clock and smashed its way clean through it. "You have a fine alarm," said Doc, "but say, you overdo it." 17th flat. A penny liner, Abram Stout, was writing a description. The flame shot up, he pounded out, then threw a mild conniption, for through his Flemington there shied a rocket hot and mystic. "I didn't mean to be," he cried, "so deuced realistic." 18th flat. Gus Gummer long had set his head upon some strange invention. "Be careful, Gus," his good wife said, "it might explode, I mention—" Just then the pesky rocket flared and wrecked that Yankee notion. "I feared as much," his wife declared, then fainted from emotion. 19th flat. While Bert was on his hobby horse and riding it like mad, the rocket on its fiery course upset the startled lad. The frightened pony plunged a lot like Fury playing tag. "Whoa, Spot," said Bert, "who would have thought you such a fiery nag?" 20th flat. A taxidermist plied his trade upon a walrus head. It really made him quite afraid to meet its stare so dread, when suddenly the rocket bright flared up and then was off. "Oh, Minnie," cried the man in fright, "just hear that walrus cough." Top flat. Oh, it was just a splendid flight, that rocket's wild career, but to an end it came all right, as you shall straightway hear. It plunged into a can of cream that Billy Bunk was freezing, and froze quite stiff, as it would seem, and so subsided, wheezing. End of The Rocket Book, read by Kara Schallenberg in January 2012 in San Diego, California. The Mythological Zoo by Oliver Herford. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Medusa. How did Medusa do her hair? The question fills me with despair. It must have caused her sore distress, that head of curling snakes to dress. Whenever after endless toil she coaxed it finally to coil, the music of a passing band would cause each separate hair to stand on end, and sway and writhe and spit. She couldn't do a thing with it. And being woman, and aware of such disaster to her hair, what could she do but petrify all whom she met, with freezing eye? The Siren. The Siren may be said to be the chorus lady of the sea, though mermaids claim her as their kin. Instead of fishy tail and fin, two shapely feet rejoice the view, with all that appertains thereto. When to these other charms we add a voice that drives the hearer mad, who will dispute her claim to be the chorus lady of the sea? The Dolphin. The Dolphin was, if you should wish to call him so, the king of fish. Though having neither gills nor scales, his title should be Prince of Whales. While too small-waisted to provide a Jonah with a berth inside, the Dolphin has been known to pack a drowning sailor on his back and bear him safely into port. He was a taxi whale, in short. The Cockatrice. If you will listen to advice, you will avoid the cockatrice. A caution, I need hardly say, wholly superfluous to-day. Yet had you lived when they were rife, such warning might have saved your life. To meet the cockatrice's eye means certain death, and that is why when I its features here portray, I make it look the other way. O cockatrice, were you so mean, what must the hennatrice have been? Cerberus. Dear reader, should you chance to go to Hades, do not fail to throw a sop to Cerberus at the gate, his anger to propitiate. Don't say, good dog, and hope thereby his 3 fierce heads to pacify. What though he try to be polite, and wag his tail with all his might, how shall one amiable tail against 3 angry heads prevail? The heads must win. What puzzles me is why in Hades there should be a watchdog. 'Tis, I should surmise, the last place one would burglarize. The Sphinx. She was half lady and half cat. What is so wonderful in that? Half of our lady friends, so say the other half, are cats to-day. In Egypt she made quite a stir. They carved huge images of her. Riddles she asked of all she met, and all who answered wrong she ate. When Oedipus her riddle solved, the minx, I mean the Sphinx, dissolved in tears. What is there, when one thinks, so wonderful about the Sphinx? The Sea Serpent. O wondrous worm that won the height of fame by keeping out of sight! Never was known on land or sea such a colossal modesty, never such arrogant pretense of ostentatious diffidence. Celebrity whom none has seen, save some postprandial marine. No magazine can reproduce your photograph. Oh, what's the use of doing things when one may be so famous a nonentity? The Salamander. The Salamander made his bed among the glowing embers red, a fiery furnace to his mind, hygiene and luxury combined. He was, if I may put it so, a saurian Abednego. He loved to climb with nimble ease the branches of the gas-log trees, where oft on chilly winter nights he rose to dizzy Fahrenheits. Believers in soul transmigration see in him the reincarnation of those sad plagues of summer who ask, "Is it hot enough for you?" The Djinn. To call a djinn the only thing one needed was a magic ring. You rubbed the ring, and forth there came a monster born of smoke and flame, a thing of vapour, fume, and glare, ready to waft you anywhere. The magic djinns of yesterday the wand of science now obey. You ring, and lo! with rush and roar, the panting monster's at the door. A thing of vapour, fume, and glare, ready to take you anywhere. What's in a name? What choice between the giants, Djinn and gasoline? The Mermaid. Although a fishwife in a sense, she does not barter fish for pence. Fisher of men her golden nets for foolish sailormen she sets. All day she combs her hair and longs for dimpled feet and curling tongs. All night she dreams in ocean caves of low-tide shoes and marcel waves. And while the fishwife, making sails, may sell her wares upon the scales, the mermaid, wonderful to tell, must wear her scales upon her cell. The Unicorn. The unicorn's a first-rate sort. He helps the lion to support the royal arms of England's king, and keep the throne from tottering. I wonder what the king would do if his supporters all withdrew. Perhaps he'd try at the stage. A throne should be an easy stepping-stone to histrionic heights, and who knows till he tries what he can do? The king, with diligence and care, might rise to be a manager. The Satyr. The satyr lived in times remote, a shape half human and half goat, who, having all man's faults combined, with a goat's nature unrefined, was not what you would call a bright example or a shining light. Far be it from me to condone the satyr's sins, yet I must own I like to think there were a few young satyrs who to heaven flew. And when St. Peter, thunder-browed, seeing them cried, "No goats allowed!" although the gate slammed quickly to, somehow their human halves got through, whereat the kindly saint relented, and that's how cherubs were invented. The Gargoyle. The gargoyle often makes its perch on a cathedral or a church, where, mid ecclesiastic style, it smiles an early Gothic smile, and while the parson, dignified, spouts at his weary flock inside, the gargoyle from its lofty seat spouts at the people in the street. And like the parson seems to say to those beneath him, "Let us spray." I like the gargoyle best. It plays so cheerfully on rainy days, while parsons, no one can deny, are awful dampers when they're dry. The Chimera. You'd think a lion or a snake were quite enough one's nerves to shake. But in this classic beast we find a lion and a snake combined, and just as if that weren't enough, a goat thrown in to make it tough. Let scientists the breed pooh-pooh, come with me to some social zoo and hear the bearded lion bleat, goat-like on patent-kidded feet, whose civil leer and damning praise the serpent's cloven tongue betrays. Lo! Lion, goat, and snake combined, thus nature doth repeat her kind. The Phoenix. The Phoenix was, as you might say, the burning question of his day. The more he burned, the more he grew splendiferous in feathers new. And from his ashes rising bland, did business at the same old stand. But though good people went about and talked, they could not put him out. A wondrous bird, indeed, they say he is not quite extinct today. The Griffin. It chanced that Allah, looking round, when he had made his creatures, found half of an eagle and a pair of extra lion legs to spare. So, hating waste, he took some glue, and made a griffin of the two. But when his handiwork he eyed, he frowned, and it was petrified, doomed for all time to represent impatience on a monument. Sometimes upon our path today its living counterpart will stray, Columbia's eagle strutting in, an awfully English lion's skin, with glass in eye and swaggering gait. Behold the griffin up to date. The Harpy. They certainly contrived to raise queer ladies in the olden days. Either the type had not been fixed, or else zoology got mixed. I envy not, primeval man, this female on the feathered plan. We only have, I'm glad to say, two kinds of human bird today, women and warriors who still wear feathers when dressed up to kill. The Centaur. The Centaur led a double life. Two natures in perpetual strife he had, that never could agree on what the bill of fare should be. For when the man-half set his heart on taking dinner à la carte, the horse was sure to cast his vote unswervingly for table d'hôte. A pretty sort of life to lead. The horse in time went off his feed, the hungry man was nigh demented. when one day oatmeal was invented. Pegasus. The ancients made no end of fuss about a horse named Pegasus, a famous flyer of his time, who often soared to heights sublime, when backed by some poetic chap for the Parnassus handicap. Alas for fame! The other day I saw an ancient one-hoss shay stop at the Mont de Piété, and lo, alighting from the same, a bard, whom I forbear to name, noting the poor beast's rusty hide, the horse I mean, methought I spied what once were wings. Incredulous, I cried, "Can this be Pegasus?" The Hydra. The Hydra Hercules defied, its 9 diminished heads must hide before the baneful modern beast, who has 1,000 heads at least. See how in horrid tears they rise, with straining ears and bulging eyes, while, blinded by fierce calcium rays, the trembling victim tribute pays, of song or measure, mime or jest, to soothe the savage Hydra's breast. If she please not the monster's whim, wild scribes will tear her limb from limb. Even if charmed he rend the air with hideous joy, let her beware, for she must surely, soon or late, fall 'neath the hissing Hydra's hate. The Hippogriff. Biologists are prone to sniff at hybrids like the hippogriff. In evolution's plan, they say, there is no place for such as they. A horse with wings could not have more than 2 legs, and this beast had 4. Well, I for one am glad to waive 2 of his legs, his wings to save. I'd even sell my auto, if I had one, for a hippogriff. The Minotaur. No book of monsters is complete without the Minotaur of Crete. Yet should I draw him you would quail, so in his place I draw a veil. O stars, that from creation's birth have winked at everything on earth, who shine where poets fear to tread, relate the story in my stead. Although it's comforting to know that Theseus slew him long ago, we need not boast we too could do with, well, a Theseus or two. End of The Mythological Zoo, read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, in January 2012, in San Diego, California.